Welcome everybody, almost time to go racing for the second time this year for the Michelin Le Mans Cup after qualifying earlier on today. It's race 2 of the 7-race season in total, and we're live on Saturday evening here at Circuit Paul Ricard, Le Castellet for race 2. Johnny Palmer and Graham Goodwin, the editor of Daily Sports Car, to take you through it as the cars have already assembled on the grid. Graham.
They most certainly have. Quick shot there of Jean-Carl Vernet, who not only employed by Duquesne, and that's obviously the link with the R-Race GP 85 car on pole position here, but also a hypercar driver for Assetto Fraschini. Here we are, Johnny, in the south of France, round 2 of what is a 6-destination season.
Yeah, we started then with the first 1 hour and 50-minute race in Barcelona 3 weeks ago. We're now in the south of France, not far from the Côte d'Azur itself. The Road to Le Mans double follows this in just over a month's time. There's a midweek race, there's a Saturday morning race, each of an hour with half points effectively, and then 3 1 hour 50-minute races to end the season at Spa, at Mugello and at Portimao at the Algarve International Circuit. And when you're making a European calendar up, then I think all the keystones are within that calendar. And without extending the season and going to a few new places, this is just about manageable for those that want to compete within it. Many of them, of course, have businesses to run as well. It's the very elongated Le Castellet circuit, dominated by that middle sector, which is effectively the whole of the Mistral Straight, but beginning and ending with some very technical sections where you need a car planted and you want to be staying off the curbs, certainly in the early phases of the race. Aston Martin are present in the GT3 field, courtesy of Blackthorn. They were due at one point to have a couple of Vantage GT3 Evos. It's just the one, though, number 91, for Claude Beauvais, who did the qualifying earlier on and joined by teammate, co-driver David McDonald of the UK. We're due, by the way, for a race start at 10 to the hour, so that's 17:50 or 10 to 6, as I like to call it. And we'll be racing, therefore, well into the evening. Certainly not approaching anything like sunset, though. That's well after 8 o'clock. But we'll still be racing and waving the checkered flag at 20 to 8. Fred Luquin is positioned right in the middle of this conversation. He looks after, he's the key man, in fact, of the Michelin Le Mans Cup and the European Le Mans Series, the big boss.
He is indeed CEO, between Yannick Dalmas on the right in that picture and Pedro Cachero, our safety car driver. This is the number 24 Stella Motorsport Audi. Darren Malkin joined this weekend by Jewis for, was it 2022 British Carrera GP GB
Porsche Carrera Cup GB champion, yes.
So a Hyundai wheelman indeed there. Another new face here. This is Jacques Nicolet, the patron, of course, owner of Ligier Automotive, talking to Pierre Fillon, the president of the Automobile Club de l'Ouest.
Jacques Nicolet, now a second-time grandfather.
At least a second-time grandfather.
At least a second-time grandfather. I think he may well have been describing that moment that he first heard.
It's fabulous.
That Josephine is now into the world.
Absolutely. And
all is well.
Pretty clearly that Elsa Nicolet is working on her own version of the Iron Dames for the future. We'll keep an eye on that one for you.
Well, like, yeah, within the same family.
Yes.
That could be a go of that in the future, definitely. Need to think of a different name. Sorry, Graham.
That's okay. Drone shot of this fabulous circuit. Unique surroundings of the circuit with these, what do we call it, the high grip surfaces, legacy of its days as a high-tech test track.
It's a bit like toothpaste, isn't it? Certain brands of toothpaste.
Exactly the same. That's exactly what I was thinking, Johnny.
Yeah, that's all I ever see, with the blue and the red stripes. Here, speaking of the Iron Dames, is the Lamborghini that took such an impressive pole position. Celia Martin, the German racer with a lot of experience around the Nürburgring and the Nordschleife itself, having competed in a number of NLS races in the past and the 24 hours. I don't know how many times Celia will have done the 24 hours, but at least 3, and probably more, has raced with in cars such as VW Golfs. This is a significant step up, though, into GT3 competition. Karen Gaillard is her teammate, and yeah, putting others to shame within the GT3 category, although I think Matt Kurzajewski will not be too far away, having taken a race win in the first outing for the Michelin Le Mans Cup, car number 51 that he shares with Alessandro Balsan, and that was a popular victory for AF Corsa last time out.
Julian Jerby, I think, clearing the grid at the moment. The team principal of Team Virage, of course, driver for Team Virage. Climbing aboard the number 20 car for high-class racing, Jens Reiner Müller. One of our drivers in this race with quite some heritage in the sport. Featured in the Michelin Le Mans Cup in winning form in GT3 with GMB Racing, but his history in sports car racing goes, well, back a quarter of a century amongst... The French national anthem, and the best bit about that was it cut Graham Goodwin completely off in his prime. And many people think that I've got the trigger button for that national anthem.
No, absolutely
I have.
not.
I have.
He has. I'll finish the point now because we've gone back to the same car. Thanks, director.
Brilliant.
Jens Reiner Müller, amongst his CV, by the way, a rather larger prototype, Lister Storm's epic LMP back in the early parts of the 21st century. There's the grid lining up into the far distance to our right, Johnny, down to the final turn here. 39 cars for the Michelin Le Mans Cup outing here, 29 of which are in the LMP3 class, and then a further 10 GT3 cars at the rear of the grid. It's, well, how do we describe the Michelin Le Mans Cup? It's a word I use often. It's bonkers.
It is.
It is strategically incredibly challenging for these teams and these drivers. And we say anything can happen. It always does. It's not often does. It always does. I can think of, honestly, one occasion in the last 4 or 5 years that you and I have been covering this series where we've come away from Michelin Le Mans Cup race and thought that wasn't quite up to scratch.
Yeah, true. Massively unpredictable.
Oh, yeah.
So difficult to manage before you're into the event for real.
Are we talking about me or the race now?
Well, actually, both of those features will tally across, but I was concentrating on this championship because if you are calling the shots and the decisions on the pit wall, well, good luck, because who knows in which direction it will flip next. There is the possibility of full course yellow and potentially a safety car as well, and we will deal with that as we cross those bridges. The first few laps are a matter of survival, and Verrery, which is the S-bend to kick off the lap, is notorious to really throw the cat amongst the pigeons. Very often we get cars streaming off to the, not quite the scenery, but across the stripes rather than sticking to the racetrack, because there just simply isn't enough room. And there's a hard and fast rule about what you must do at turn 1 and down at turn 3, which is Virage de l'Hôtel. You can't rejoin the track straight away. You have to go to the escape route. Those that know Monza's Grand Prix circuit well, at the second chicane there, if you go too deep, you've got to go the correct side of a bollard. Well, it's a very similar rule here at turn 1 and turn 3, and we have seen various cars being pinged for penalties for not obeying that rule, which has been stipulated many times during drivers' briefings. This is the Adrian Schiller David Drew car, which will start from the third position, number 97, and Adrian Schiller will be doing the opening lap. He was part of qualifying earlier on as well, but Cool Racing certainly have a huge amount of experience compared to some of the other runners in this division to have a good result here. Virage likewise, they've taken titles in the Le Mans Cup. Well, last year they are defending title winners, let us not forget, although their driver lineup has changed since. And speaking of which, Menea Stefan, who was a champion in the Ligier European Series last year, steps up to the Michelin Le Mans Cup to join his teammate, who will start the car, Jamie Falvey, in number 44. The parallel runway Will is about to get rather busy, it looks like, with a jet about to take off. So that is just the other side of the start and finish straight, in the same direction as the start and finish straight and the Mistral straight.
It's quite some piece of kit, that was.
It really did look like it, yes. That's your transport home, I presume, after this race.
I don't think I'm quite at that level.
RACE GP. Now, let's talk about the 85, because Fabien Michel is clearly proving to be a real talent and perhaps slightly quicker than your average bronze. So therefore, the 85 car will have to spend 13 more seconds in the pit lane compared to the 160-second minimum pit stop reference time. So it's 2 minutes and 40 for the majority of the field, 2 minutes and 53 for that car. And there's also going to be a change for the James Swetnam car, which is number 87, Cool Racing. They will have to take a penalty during that stop.
Yeah.
Here's the full grid then. Fabien Michel for RACE GP, number 85, taking a dominant victory last time out as well, alongside Jamie Falvey for Team Virage, number 44. Then it is Adrian Schiller for Cool Racing and Shahan Sarkisian for CD Sport, 97 at number 2. In the third row, 59 for Oscar Bitar, and the Breton Racing Ben Stone driven number 26. Ahead of Jens Moller for High Class Racing and Georgios Kolovos in the Graf car, which is a non-championship entry. M Racing's number 13, Romano Ricci, will start that alongside Horst Feldmeier for Reiter Engineering, another car that we won't see for the full season. Alexander Bukantsov for Inter-Europol competition starts 11th. Olden Gudmundsson in the 77 Team Thor car for Company. And then on the 7th row, it's James Swetnam for Cool Racing. He'll have to spend a bit longer in the pit lane, 10 extra seconds. Clement Moreno, who's on double duty, done 2 Ligier European Series races already today, and now this one. Christian Short, Pieter de Curtens for CD Sport, and Hegeli by T2 Racing. Tony Wells for Nielsen will start from 17th in car 7, and Christophe Lapierre for Racing Spirit of Le Mans, former champions in this series, car 10. Julien Lemoine for ANS Motorsport, number 84, starts 19th. Christophe Cresp, who was a late addition to the lineup to join Max Meyer, in 20th. Then it's Sylvain Guintoli to join Senan Fielding in the number 42 Stella Motorsport Ligier. Patrice Lafargue for EDEC Sport, also on that row. Stefan Aust for Rinaldi Racing, number 71, and Roman Iniesta for Breton Racing, number 62. Mark van der Snel racing with Max van der Snel, that's father and son for More Motorsport. Steve Parrow alongside Andrew Ferguson for P4 Racing, and Tim Kresick is permitted to start in the 43. We were worried that he hadn't done enough qualification laps. George Nakas for GG Classics will be the final LMP3 car, and then Celia Martin for Iron Dames in the 83 Lamborghini Huracan starts alongside championship leader Matt Kurzewski. Then it's Darren Malkin and Andrew Gilbert for Stella and Kessel, respectively, in their Audi and Ferraris. Claude Beauvais for Blackthorn in the Aston Martin. Nick Jones in the high-class racing Porsche, ahead of Fred Jose in the Kessel Racing Ferrari, the red and white example. Jörg Dreishoff is there as well on the outside. Josip Mayela Comadera for Biogas Motorsport, and Custodio Toledo struggled to put in a meaningful time. He had a big lock-up early on in qualifying and never really recovered from that. And breathe, because this is your chance to gulp in air. You'll be holding your breath for the next hour and 50 minutes.
The first of the 2 formation lap has started. The first of the 2 formations lap has started.
So this 2 formation lap procedure introduced with the withdrawal from service across ACO rules racing of tyre warmers to allow the teams, the drivers, to get heat into, in this case, of course, Michelin tyres. It is the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and they equip all 4 corners of every one of the 29 LMP3 cars and the 10 GT3 cars. So take a breath, as Johnny Palmer says, as they make their way around in bright sunshine here, with a fair number of fans around the circuit. Top of the pit building, great viewing there, and some of the stands are open around the track. We're still here tomorrow for the European Le Mans Series, where you can catch up with that race too in full, live in sound and vision on the series website and on YouTube, as our broadcast partners. But for now, we settle in for an hour and 50 minutes of who knows what.
Yeah, and that is really the moot point. We will find out in due course how the start goes, and just wishing everyone well that they can get through the Verrerie S the first time of asking. There's a bit of give and take, there's a bit of respect required in order to do that, but no doubt one or two cars will head away to the more scenic routes through turns 1 and 2 and hopefully rejoin safely to make sure we've got still the full complement of 39 cars at the end of that first racing lap. So Jens Moller, Tommy Foster with a very hard-fought victory last time out. They lead the championship by 6 points over Fabien Michel and Adrien David, whose race didn't quite go to plan, but they certainly set it up well with the pole position and then came home in 2nd place. But that, again, had lots of twists and turns. Did they get on the wrong side of a safety car, maybe?
I'm trying to think. They certainly had the delay, didn't they, and had to chase back towards the end of the race. Couldn't quite get back to the high-class racing car.
And that was Adrien David who was given the final stint. That's likely to be the same today as well. Well, it is the same today. 45 minutes is the minimum drive time, so effectively you can pit your car from that point onwards.
The other thing to watch here is we've got a fair amount of new in terms of teams and in particular drivers here who are going to find speed through this season, and there's a good place for them to do it. Fair number of the guys will have raced here before and are finding consistency and speed. We expect to see that improvement. You see it with the bronze drivers in qualifying, you'll see it through the race. If they can keep the car on the grey stuff, if they can keep everything on the shiny side, then you will start to see more and more improvement as the races draw on and as the season draws on.
Yeah, and that's why it's so fascinating to stick with this throughout the year, to watch the development of drivers and then wonder where they may go in future years too, because there have been plenty of stars that have begun their sports car careers in the Michelin Le Mans Cup.
Attention to everyone, let's try to start working on closing these gaps, please.
I'm not entirely sure, by the way. We've got a quick look at a pit crew there. I do know that Romain Dumas is here with one of these teams doing a bit of driver coaching and general support and encouragement. That looked very like Romain Dumas in pit gear.
Really?
It really did.
Okay.
Let's close these gaps, please.
Trying to think whether there's anyone up and down pit lane who is the spitting image of Romain Dumas, but if he's here...
As a crew member, not as a driver, by the way.
Yes. So if he's here...
He's definitely here.
Well, obviously somebody spotted him and said, well, you're not driving. I've looked at all the entry lists and you've not been entered into a car, so fancy doing a bit of pit lane work for us.
Well, I mean, there's another lovely story comes from
let's close these gaps.
European
Let's not
Le Mans
try
series,
to
which
leave
we'll
too
tell
much
tomorrow
space
about
between
the mother
drivers.
of one of our crew members who's now here running the dead man's handle on one of the LMP2 cars. We'll tell that story and I'll have a chat and we'll see whether we can get a word with my fellow 60-plus-year-old person in pit lane. That's it's a brilliant story and it's exactly what we want to see in sports car racing. It is a family. We'll keep an eye on whether or not we've got a balaclavaed Romain Dumas, or whether I'm completely wrong, which does happen from time to time.
Oh, this person was wearing a balaclava,
Yes.
which makes identity possibly more
Okay, reminder
tricky.
to all entering T11, this is when you start assuming your grid position.
So again, all of this will have been offered, this advice from Gwen Bossier, who is our race director for Michelin Le Mans Cup. But Gwen having to stress the point that by the third sector, then that's when the grid positions need to start to be taken up. So it's turn 11 to be exact. Bandor, the
Okay,
left-hander.
leaders, please start assuming grid position. Leaders, start assuming grid position.
But they're heading into the double droite de Beausset right now.
No more weaving, no more weaving. Assume grid position. Assume grid position.
Corner named after the nearby town of Beausset. Double droite being a double right-hander into Bandor, the left-hander, and then into Garlaban. Now Graham's showing me a screenshot of this supposed Romain Dumas. It's not just a balaclava. He's got the ski goggles on, he's got a helmet, so we're going by basically a nose and a mouth. I didn't know you'd studied Romain Dumas' face quite that well.
All cars in grid position.
You still reckon
all
it's
cars
him,
in grid position.
Okay. If you're watching on those streaming services where you can rewind, quickly
Two
and get
clear
back to live
lines
action
through
in
the
time for the
starting
race, then we'll
stand box.
focus on that. But no doubt somebody's doing a screenshot for us even as we speak. Let's get to more important things, because for the second time this year, the Michelin Le Mans Cup is about to burst into life in the right possible sense, we hope. It's a long run down to now the indication that the race is live. 1 hour and 50 minutes of racing with a good getaway from Fabien Michel in the Duquet, number 85. Can Jamie Falvey go around the outside? No, he can't. And let's see whether everyone gets cleanly through turns 1 and 2. Well, no, they don't, because all of a sudden, there's spinners in the mid-pack as well. There were debris popping up into the sky. Everyone's still pointing in the right direction, at least, even though they're not on the racetrack. And the top 3 remain in the same order. So it's Michel for Our Race GP. It's Falvey for Team Virage in the yellow, black and orange. And then the cool racing colours of Adrian Schiller. 1 or 2 out wide again. And there is a spinner this time in the middle of turns 3, 4 and 5. 2 spinners, because that's also the Hegeli by T2 Racing Duquesne, which is facing the wrong way on the exit of Virage du L'Hotel. But the top 3 have safely got onto the Mistral.
I think that may have been the Stella 42 Duquesne. It looked like a Duquesne, it looked like their colour scheme. But away we go. The only yellow flags are at turn 5 and 6. It did look as if that other car, that Stella car, if that was the correct one, might get away. I think it was Sylvain Guintoli involved with that, with Peter de Curtin. Stefan Aust also may have been tied in with that one. But away the leading pack go. Through seeing for the first time at speed, a little bit of elbows out there in the mid-pack.
But a slight gap already emerging between Schiller in 3rd and then Oscar Bitter and the rest. Shahan Sarkisian has lost just a single place to Bitar in the 2nd of the Virage machines. Alexander Bukantsov running in 6th place in the 34 into Europol competition car. And a reminder for us that the number 87 of James Swetnam will have to take that 10-second penalty after being judged to be at fault after an incident with Tim Kresick in qualifying earlier on. Already somebody firing a move down the inside of Virage du Pont. I think that might well have come off. We'll work out what this gaggle is in a moment or two to cross the line.
It's the Nielsen
7
racing
car,
car,
isn't it? So yeah, Tony Wells, and alongside him is Christian Short for CD Sport. Now Christian to the right of your picture and Tony Wells right in the middle.
There's another LMP3 car with a trackside advertising banner on the front of the car. That's going to cause them problems. But I'm happy to say, by the way, all 39 cars are away and running. So that incident, turn 5, 6, has been sorted out and everybody's back in the race.
That is what I'd hoped. I did wonder whether some of the lines might be slightly wayward in the first few corners, but everyone could survive it. And so far, so good. I spot the car with the advertising hoarding. It's the one behind, number 6. So is that Georgios Kolovos and the Graf car that has picked up a bit of circuit scenery. Kolovos, the Greek, maybe just a one-off, although I would imagine that teams like Graf and like Wright Engineering are putting in some laps ahead of the Road to Le Mans events in June.
There it is, centre of the picture. Great big white board, which is not going to be helping the aero any at all. This is where you're going to need it.
True.
Our GT3 leader. That's switched back again, hasn't it? Because Jimmy Martin is back ahead of Matt Kozajewski.
That hoarding would also be a bigger concern were it to be a GT car, because they're obviously reliant on gulping in air to potentially keep the engine temperature down. As now much faster into Bose, Kozajewski. But this was the start of the race then, starting exactly on time. And the R-Race GP car had to keep the elbows out both to the left and the right, but it was a good run into the first corner despite the pressure from 38 other cars. And then others just gave up, didn't they, on turning in because there wasn't the space. There was almost a spin for one of the cars right in the middle.
It was a Virage car side by side with a CD Sport car as well. And then it was Peter de Curtin's spinning out and a further issue off the apex of the next turn. So it was 2 or 3 minor incidents that thankfully didn't turn into a major one.
And you're quite right, it was Sylvain Guintoli in the Stella Motorsport car in the red and white that almost spun in sympathy, perhaps in avoidance of Pieter de Curtin's car, which was then stranded in the middle of the track. But Pieter actually starting quite a way up in the grid, so he's lost a lot of time, and that had scope for being a worse incident than it turned out to be.
So there is the errant piece of trackside furniture. Looks to me like an advertising hoarding. Not quite sure where that's come from and how. So it will not, as I say, be helping that car at all.
Both in terms of downforce, but I would imagine less so in terms of engine temperature. Prototypes don't really work in that way, but they will. Certainly, Georgios Kolovos will be feeling that at the turning point for senior, and a lot of other corners where the downforce is at the maximum level. Gordon Goodmanson for Team Tour, number 77 car. How's he doing in terms of position? 10th place for the Icelandic driver.
Right in the groove,
yeah.
And doing what he needs to do, which is just hang on in there, keep his position, make up positions where he can, but get that car to Colin Noble for the second half of this race.
And it is the championship leader, Jens Moller, tucked in behind for high-class racing, number 20, winners in Barcelona, so he'll be wanting to try and make a bit of ground as well. Goodmanson, Felbermeyer, James Swetnam.
Oh, trouble for the Biogas Motorsport Ferrari. This is a car that didn't manage to start the race in Barcelona, engine trouble in practice. That car has run wide. Now, whether or not that's mechanical, electronic or whatever, it looks like it's just... He's had a spin around, maybe stalled the car.
Yeah. So it's Josep Mayola, the Spaniard, joined by Mark Carroll. So bronze and silver combination, both of Spain. A real disappointment, clearly, for them to not take part in their home race, and they wanted to put things right as Celia Martins just crossed the line to be the quickest driver in this GT3 class. It is moving again, though, the Biogas car.
I was just about to say, not a great place for it to have stopped either. It is rather in line of fire.
True.
So, happily, we're back to 39 cars running. RHGP, Fabien Michel is getting away here. Almost 2 seconds to the good. So, 51. My apologies, it's the 12 from Kessel with the Stella Audi in the middle pack here of GT3 cars. Not be long, I don't think, before we've got both the Stella cars together on track. So look in the background, we're going to see a recovering pair of LMP3 cars, getting by T2 Racing Car and Stella Motorsports. Both Duquesnes, of course. We've got one Duquesne leading, two right at the back of the pack.
A horror show on the opening lap. Yeah, that irony had not missed me. So Duquesne clearly can be a quick package, but you need to be pointing in the right direction to make it work, generally speaking.
Stefan Aus making his way through the leading pair of GT3 cars as he recovers ground in the the 71 Rinaldi Ligier. Back to the sharper end of the grid. This pack of LMP3 cars going for about half a mile, doesn't it?
As far as the eye can see, in certain positions, this 1.8 kilometre Mistral straight helping if you're in traffic for, well, both GT and in the prototype category. It buys you a bit of time. Now Graf have obviously been given little choice but to pick the car. They're probably losing time on the timing screen, but also a touch concern that maybe it will start to have its impact on the airflow across the car and relevant cooling as well. It's not just the engine you need to worry about, but also brakes, because talk about brake blanking a lot of the time and the airflow through the brake caliper and disc, and that just cannot access that part of the car with that across the board. So it wasn't an advising board, it was actually a direction. Yeah, so
didn't follow that. Missed this board on this side.
Yeah, yes.
What that means.
Didn't follow its advice at all. But amazingly, everyone has remembered where to turn right or left, depending which way that arrow was pointing in the first place. But it will be returned to Le Castellet circuit.
So Kolovos back out on running, and will join ahead of the Biogas car, but way down in 38th place now. So we've got, what, 3-4 LMP3 cars in amongst the GTs. And be a while before we get to real traffic for the leading group of LMP3s. I think you were saying earlier in the weekend, Johnny, in terms of terminal velocity, not much between the GT3s and the LMP3s here. It's in braking and cornering speeds that the big difference in performance comes.
Yeah, they really do go well down the straights. We've often said that about in multi-category racing when a Cup car, a Porsche or a Lamborghini Cup car goes up against its GT3 counterpart. They have phenomenal straight line speed because they don't have as much aero, and that's ramped up yet further when you compare a GT3 in this case with an LMP3.
Yep.
So you have to pick and choose where you're going to get by safely, the GT3 runners, and that's often, well, charging up the inside of Virage Dupont, the corner where the top two in GT3 have just wriggled free from. So Celia Martin, at the moment, up to the task of defending from American driver Matt Kurzajewski. But
Steve Parry
now,
in trouble.
yes.
Just watching him tumbling down the timing screen, now we can see he's not just tumbling down, he's stopped and he's got the car refired again. This is a tale, Johnny, of minor woes, but recovery at the moment. That's about the 5th or 6th car we've seen with a bit of trouble, but managing to stay on the island.
And thankfully, we managed to avoid any slowing down of the race pace as well. Don't need to neutralise it at all. Meanwhile, so 5 laps in and nothing between the top two. Does that mean...
No, that was well overly ambitious from the number 88 car, Stadio Toledo.
Well, I think his whole day has been mightily frustrating because he didn't post the time that he would wanted in qualifying, and now trying to force the issue a little bit to get back up into the top 6 places of GT3, but you're not going to be able to do it with success that way.
No, there's a bit of a biff on the Proton Huber competition. Porsche delighted to see that team back with us after the tragedy they suffered in Spain. Brilliantly presented car. This, though, won't have helped their day. That was never on. It was off the track to do it as well.
Yeah.
That will not impress race control.
The bollard had already been removed, but that's not Custodio's excuse and chance then to try and take. They'll do the overtake when you're shortcutting turn 5.
Jamie Falvey, by the way, has not given up this chase, and in fact has just put in the fastest lap of the race to reduce the gap to 1.2 seconds for the lead. So Fabian Michal it is for race RSGP. Team Virage and the number 44 car, Jimmy Falvey, has taken up that chase.
Yeah, so Falvey now with a real sighter on Fabian Michal, and the 152.3 is a really good lap time, 0.3 of a second quicker than Michal's best to date, and he took nearly a second out, as you've mentioned. So Adrian Schiller's got to be careful not to lose too much on this. And now, have we got a... Is that just dust from the race surface, or is that more significant from the Virage car, I think, from distance?
That looks like that is fluid. That's had a biff in the side, hasn't it? The biogas car stopped again.
Yeah.
But that looked to me like there was impact damage on the left side of the car. I think that's a burst radiator, Johnny.
Well, could be coolant pouring out of the car. It's certainly not smoke, and I wouldn't think it's fuel either. Let's hope it's not fuel. But coolant can be very slippery as well for those chasing behind. It's the 59 car of Oscar Bittar that had started so well. He got up to 4th position, but now 59 potentially trailing fluid. And the danger is what happens when that fluid runs out. Precisely what is it doing? Is it cooling the engine? Oscar Bittar is going to be lucky here to get back to the pit lane. Everybody else swooping by on his right-hand side. Sensibly, he's got off the racetrack now onto a different part of the Le Castellet circuit that we're not using this weekend.
So is that impact? There's something trailing on the side there. So it's the leading edge of the side pod.
Yeah. That's the biogas Ferrari then.
We're going to go full course yellow, and that is principally for recovery, I think, of the number 23 car. What a horrible start to their season they've had. But the 59 car has made it back.
It is smoke, actually. Looks more like... So
I think
does the exhaust thread through that part of the circuit? Saying no chance. Well, the exhaust outlet is just below it. They're saying no chance because there's almost like a bullet hole in the corner, or rather the side of the car.
It could be exhaust.
It looked more like smoke to me than vapour.
Someone's hit that car very hard.
Too right. And not knowing how the exhaust folds around the side of the car and the side pod itself.
Well, you're going to watch this start again. We might see a little bit more of what just exactly happened to put the 4 or 5 cars off to the right driver's right here, Johnny.
Yeah, but I don't believe there was any contact for the Oscar Bitter car at this stage.
The 3 cars
further
impacted
behind
there,
was.
and then it was the remaining 3 or 4 cars to avoid what they thought was a closing gap. That included, by the way, the Higeli car.
Yes, gaining loads of places and then spinning it away at the very next sequence of corners. So the Higeli car coming into sight now.
I think he got a hit from Silva Guintoli. I think he was hit by the Stella car,
which spun straight afterwards.
Correct. It did look to me that Guintoli was in very close proximity there. So under full course yellow, we're going to go back to green flag racing in about 15 seconds time. That was just to quickly recover the
10,
Ferrari.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Full course yellow is removed. Full course yellow is removed.
So back into the fight we go, and Celia Martin will have been circulating with Matt Kurzajewski at very close quarters, but she is fired back into the green flag segment of the race at great speed. Didn't lose out too much at all when you compare the acceleration pace to the AF Corsa Ferrari. So they will be evenly matched for the rest of this stint, quite potentially. 45 minutes, remember, of drive time is the minimum requirement. So another 30 minutes of these starting drivers. They're all principally bronze. As now Guintoli in the recovery drive is neck and neck in his Audi with a Ferrari.
That's not Guintoli in the Audi, he's in the...
Sorry, no, he's not. He's in the other Stella
it's
car.
Darren Malkin.
Thank you.
And just looking to see where the other Stella car is. Ahead of them now. So that's made good progress in the hands of Sylvain Guintoli, and ironically, he's right behind Peter de Curtens again.
Did Guintoli drive this Audi last year?
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
he
okay. That's part of the reason why I'm getting confused.
He did a 2-off, I think, at Portimao for the final race of the season.
Yeah, and that was perfect preparation for then getting into a P3 the following year. But the champion on 2 wheels, wanting to become the first man ever to win the 24 hours on Le Mans on 2 and 4 wheels. That is the target for the next few years.
Jamie Falvey is willing contact here. And Fabien Michel knows he's got a fight on. And remember, the RSGP car will serve an extra 13 seconds. Trouble for one of the Kessel cars, and that was a hit from Darren Malkin.
And
in Stella Audi.
The tyres,
Don't think so.
Just missed it. So that is the 12 car of Fred Jose, and spun right around through a full 360 degrees. Hopefully Jose is able to rejoin after that moment.
I think he has done. It says yellow removed now, so we'll wait and see whether he clears the next timing zone. That could have been very considerably worse.
Too right.
And he has indeed rejoined.
I mean, unfortunately for Fred, he will have had no warning that that was about to happen. A slight misjudgment, maybe, from Darren. And I'm sure that's going to be looked at. So we'll wait to see when it's being investigated and then bring you a decision.
So 2 of our newbies for the championship. There's the damage. I think there is, yes.
And he's missed the pit lane entry road. But there's definitely
tyre rub.
It's bodywork on tyre, and it's going to get worse around this lap as well. Just the 5.7 kilometres to do before he can get back to pit lane. Let's hope that rear left Michelin survives.
That happened just after pit in, didn't it?
I don't know, and I wonder whether Fred might have been able to sneak in had he known the damage was that bad. But you really want to do at least a few corners to know whether the car will be all right or not, because it's pointless pitting now. That really will take him out of any potential good result.
As I say, 2 of our newbie GT3 cars. Great to have these cars. Oh, that's just as I say it. Round goes the Porsche. Almost collects the recovering Rinaldi car. I think may recover from that. Hoping that was just a lack of grip for Jon Dreiselv and not a failure. Beautifully prepared 73 Porsche turned around and almost backed it into the passing Ligier. He was involved in like a fun fight with Claude Beauvais.
Yeah.
And the 91 Blackthorn Aston Martin. Beautiful looking car, that Aston.
Well, it was fun up until that point, and now probably the Proton Hubert driver will beg to differ. But let's hope that Jörg Dreiselv can rejoin. His tyres will be rather second-hand after that spin. But just needs to do a further, well, about 25 minutes before the car could get new tyres. they'll be fueling and putting new tyres on, and the driver change for everybody as well, to ensure that each driver has done a minimum of 3/4 of an hour.
He has recovered to the track, by the way. Cost him about 15 seconds, but has recovered to the track. All sorts of mini dramas here.
Yeah, and it's often as a result of two cars fighting for several corners, and then all of a sudden it explodes in the wrong sense. We've obviously had one or two cars stopping in isolated incidents as well. And then the Oscar Bitar moment, we still don't know where the contact happened for the number 59 car and precisely what was trailing from the left-hand side in that side pod. It looked more and more to me like exhaust smoke, but whether the contact was made, well, early on in the race and it's taken a while to actually come to a head, who knows? We'll try and find that out.
All sorts, by the way, of investigations underway, as you might imagine, with a slightly minor incident littered race so far. I was going to just add that the cars this year have got new exhaust manifolds, and this is to do with a reduction in the permitted noise from the LMP3 cars. It's not that noticeable trackside, but they have got new exhaust manifolds. Just wonder whether or not it was that component they're very familiar with that the mechanic immediately recognised as being broken.
Yeah, maybe. Well, there was no question about them
just
not being able
wasn't it?
No, there wouldn't be no way of being able to fix it, and they knew precisely how much damage had been done. So certainly a glancing blow, I would have thought, side to side, but quite what's punctured that hole in the side of the 59 car, we're still rather puzzled at that. Here's three GT cars together, including a recovering Darren Malkin in the Stella Motorsport Audi. He has ahead of him as Malkin thought about a move there on the Ferrari that sits ahead.
Good straight line speed in that Audi here.
Yes. So this is a 74 Kessel Racing Ferrari in a very sort of un-Kessel-like livery, the black and the orange. And High Class Racing's Nick Jones, the first of this gaggle of cars then. Number 18 running third in GT3. None of these runners can touch the scrap for first and second, which had a massive 79 thousandths of a second between those two cars, if I'm reading that correctly. Yes, no, that was De Curten's recovering a big bond. It's actually 2.8 seconds between Celia Martin and Matthew Kozajewski. And then De Curten's trying to unravel himself from the GT traffic after that opening lap spin.
Brief look back at our overall race leaders. That gap is now 0.4 of a second. Michel and Falvey. This trio still battle engaged. That is a battle for it's third place, isn't it, in GT3? Those three cars with Castellet and Toledo in reasonably close contact as well.
Yeah, Toledo's running 6th, so just needs to latch onto the rear of Darren Malkin's Audi. But yes, this is all juggling the positions for the final step on the podium in GT3. And Gilbert, late on the brakes, more than thought about a move on Nick Jones into Virage Dupont, but had to get out of that at the last moment. So that's Andrew Gilbert versus Nick Jones for High Class Racing. Darren Malkin might be about to capitalise if it all goes wrong ahead of him, but Celia Martin's just done an even better lap now in GT3. That's the fastest race lap so far in that category. So not far from bowing to the pressure from Matt Kozajewski. Actually, she's fully focused on the road in front.
But it's the next chapter, isn't it, this effort in the Iron Dame story, leading GT3 with this new look 2 driver squad for the Iron Dames. Continuation of the project to introduce talent and develop talent in motorsport, not just at the wheel of the car, but also in the garage, in team management, in engineering. And it has had an impact across the world of motorsport, and it continues to have an impact across the world of motorsport. Trouble there for the number 6 car. Did he nearly drive into that lamppost?
I think, again, that's an angle thing. I'd be surprised if there's a lamppost in the middle of the racetrack.
He's pit in. He spun into pit in.
Okay, so not trying to pit, but going a touch wide at Virage du Lac.
That is the A&S Motorsport car, I believe, of Clement Moreno.
Yeah.
It's the new car, the one we didn't have at Barcelona. And there through goes Darren Malkin. It was ultimately quite easy there. It was the Kessel car running a little wide, but he then runs over the curb Castellet Ferrari fighting back. I think Malkin has got that done. He's now heading off in pursuit of Nick Jones. So the Castellet Ferrari runs off track there. Now we're about to get into traffic.
Yes, and as the RHGP car turned in there, well, that wasn't a little bit of smoke coming from the front left corner, was it? It might have just been a glint of the headlight, because both headlights not quite on full beam from Fabien Michel, but he's turned them on to make sure that the GT3 traffic are aware that these quick cars are approaching. Senior corner does really push the car down on that front left. Remember, at this equivalent meeting last year when Louis Delatraz nearly won for Racing Team Turkey, but he absolutely obliterated that front left tyre. There was nothing left on it in ELMS. Well, even in a race this short of an hour and 50 minutes, it really punishes the front left tyre. So we'll keep an eye on the 85, make sure it's not wearing its tyres too readily. But certainly Jamie Falvey is able to keep with the pace of Fabien Michel.
Well, he's looking to see what he can do about passing him on the track. Remember, in real terms, the Fabien Michel effort, the RSGP effort, is 13 seconds back.
Yes.
So what he needs to do here, Jamie Falvey, is keep this car in his sights. Behind, though, also going very quickly, just 3.5 seconds back, Adrian Schiller for Cool Racing, the 97 car, had just put a very quick lap in and is holding on to that gap as well.
But that is a good shout, which I'm sure they've discussed at Team Virage to say,
do this with any risk at all.
Well, yeah, if you find yourself close to the RHGP car, don't feel compelled to overtake it, because you don't need to. You're going to gain 13 seconds during the pit stop cycle, just stick with it and let the race come to you.
The biogas car's back in the race.
Good. So Josip Mayola has not had a happy start, but at least the 23 car is running again.
So that means the only car not currently running is the 59 car that we saw end of days for. It's either side of the biogas car. Now it's the Proton Huber car, and it's a change of leader. But there's another wiggle there through the same turn, and it's a change of lead. It's gone the way of Jamie Falvey, and he's done that beautifully in traffic.
Superb.
And nicely done, sir.
Again, I think there was a bit of smoke coming from the 85 car as it went through senior corner. That's not why Michel went wide. He chose the wrong side of the biogas Ferrari, and then they're coming up towards the Proton Huber car as well.
He got it done before they got to the Porsche, then ran over the curb, didn't he? Almost lost the car.
Nearly cleaned the Porsche out as he ran out of traction, because he's approaching the second bit of the double droite from completely the wrong angle. But he won't care one bit, because he left Beausset as the new race leader. Jamie Falvey now showing that he can outpace Fabien Michel, which might be a bit of bad news as we move to the next meeting, because if Michel's copped an extra 13-second penalty and Falvey's arguably faster than him, goodness knows what happens next.
Well, let's play a game of hashtag wait and see.
Yes.
You see as well, by the way, that Darren Malkin has made his way past Nick Jones now, and now we've got another battle in GT3, because this is the recovering AF Corsa Ferrari on the Kessel car. So it is Castellet Toledo going by Andrew Gilbert. Gilbert, though, fights back and retakes the place into and through Scene. Can he hold it? Yes, he can. Battle of the two giant Ferrari teams. Kessel Racing from Switzerland, AF Corsa, of course, from Italy. Identical cars, different liveries.
Different setups as well, according to generally how the Bronze prefers the car to behave. But AF Corsa and Kessel Racing will adapt accordingly, with so much knowledge and so much data already in the bank before coming here to Le Castellet. But the orange and black of the Andrew Gilbert car, run by Kessel Racing, now just staying ahead of their arch rivals for AF Corsa, and this is the fight for 5th and 6th within category. I'm not surprised that Castellet Toledo is showing a bit more speed than he did in qualifying. That didn't go well, but managing now to collect his thoughts and continue to concentrate on the matter in hand. Jamie Falvey leading by 1.5 seconds now. He is.
Puts the fastest lap of the race in, and he's into the 151's first car to do so. 151.968 for Jamie Falvey. looks like Team Ferrari have found another good one.
And what are the lap times like for Michel? 1:53.0. He's actually slower than Adrian Schiller on that lap as well. I still have a slight concern about how it's wearing its tyres, that R-Ace GP car.
Okay.
And if there was a little bit of smoke, I still haven't had a chance to see it into senior for a third time. But I just wonder whether the bodywork, the wheel arch is starting to rub a touch as it turns into senior, which will not bode well towards the end of the stint.
Well, we've not seen contact for that car at any point, have we?
No, but I just think it's down to the downforce across the nose. I don't think it's been an optical illusion. There's the number 6, which has already been in strife and picked off a place, but then immediately gave it back. So that 6 car is scrapping with the more motorsport car of Mark van der Snel. And van der Snel back ahead.
Breton Racing's Ben Stone, by the way, will be getting a 10-second penalty added to the pit stop for an infringement at the start. May not be the only one.
True. So that's a penalty picked up in the race rather than one organised before it.
Yeah. So Mark van der Snel getting into, indeed, the second I say it, there's a second one. It's the 71 car this time.
And that is the Rinaldi Racing car of Stefan Aust.
Exactly the same thing. And the 43.
And that's the Tim Kresick car for Inter-Europol competition. So, yes, he's been allowed to start the race, but an extra 10-second time penalty to be added to the already 160-second pit stop that all of these cars must serve.
I think Adrian Schiller has been given the notice that he needs to push, because Adrian Schiller all of a sudden is putting in very quick sector times indeed, and is pushing hard to try to get onto terms with Fabian Michel. He's 5 seconds back at the moment. 43 is the next car. Well, we talked about the 43 car being pinged for it. So 3 cars with 10 seconds to add, plus, of course, the 85 that's carrying that 13 seconds that they will add.
Yes.
That's not going to get confusing in the pit stops at all.
No, I know. And a number of people were at pains to point out that I'd read all the bulletins, because it doesn't take a lot to confuse Graham and I at the best of times. And when you've got pre-arranged penalties and then penalties to be added during the race, it is rather difficult to stay on top of this, and that's why there can be some late decisions in the day, because race direction get the rest of the evening to work everything out. We've got to call it as we see it.
It's all okay for them, says Johnny Palmer.
Basically, yes.
You've got it easy, Gwen Boursier, he's just said to me.
Pretty much, and all the other stewards.
62 car is on pit lane. This is too early.
Yes, it is. And it's in fact on the dolly jack, so it's being pushed towards the garage. We won't be able to go in the garage because they're full of ELMS teams, but certainly some movement there. Here is the Patrice Lafargue, Tim Kresick fight then. EDEX Sport ahead of Inter-Europol competition.
Keep an eye on what's going on with the 62 off camera.
Kresick eager to try and make up some of this ground that he's going to lose during the pit stop, with an extra 10 seconds having to be served. That won't be the final penalty announced by race control either, I'm sure.
I'll tell you, the engine cover is coming off the 62 on pit lane. We'll catch up, I'm sure, with what's going on with the team a little later. Over half an hour into this race, and it is still very close. Although Jamie Falvey is working the issue of making it less close. He's now 2.7 seconds clear of Fabian Michel. At one point looked absolutely dominant, didn't he? So Jamie Falvey, should be said, by the way, you were talking about the relative pace. He's not that much faster than the fastest laps we're seeing elsewhere. He's just consistently fast.
Okay, yes. So there are other equivalent paced cars / drivers in the race, but they can't necessarily produce it as readily as Jamie Falvey. It's always been said to me, consistency is better than speed a lot of the time. You identify your delta time and stick to that.
You can strategize around consistency.
Yeah.
I think that's the key in a long race. Again, this is back to business with Kessel Racing and AF Corsa, and again, it's the AF Corsa car trying to find a way by its rival, 74 with 88. Andrew Gilbert, Castellet Toledo.
Toledo looks to be the quicker of the two cars, but he's just got to find a way by safely. And Andrew Gilbert may well know that fact, but he's also aware that if he sticks to his lines, keeps shutting the door in a legal fashion, then Toledo's going to find it really tough to get by. And Nick Jones will be hoping that Gilbert continues to delay Castellet Toledo as well.
Well, they're also delaying. I think that's the 85 car behind this battle, is it not?
Fabian Michel is, right with them, it would seem.
And that is not helping his chase, and it's not going to help his defence against Adrian Schiller either.
No.
It is indeed the 85 car.
Yeah, lights flashing again, but acceleration off the corner from the GT3 cars is pretty good.
That's cost him a couple of seconds.
So he's now looking for a way at the inside of Andrew Gilbert's Kessel Racing Ferrari. He should be able to clear the orange and black car now, but can't get in front of Nick Jones in the same movement.
In the background, by the way, that is Adrian Schiller. He's 4 seconds back now. It's almost equidistant, first to second to third. Now he clears those three, and of course Schiller has got to do the same.
True. But yeah, that's been costly. Oh, and straight lining turn 4 there, Michel. But it's been costly for Fabian Michel and potentially for Adrian Schiller, whereas Jamie Falvey obviously found those 3 cars at a much better point, perhaps on the Mistral straight on the previous lap, and didn't lose too much time at all. Cool Racing's number 97 turning left. Well, that can't be Adrian Schiller, he's already gone through turns 1 and 2. May well be the 87 car, therefore, of James Swetnam, that will need to take extra time during the stop.
62, by the way, still on pit lane, and trouble there for the 26, the other Breton car. That's been turned around. Rejoins. And that was Ben Stone who started that car, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The 13th, he set in a pretty good position there. What happened here?
Much the better of the 2 Breton Racing cars.
It was... Oh, there's an impact with the Proton Huber car. That just didn't see him, I don't think. He was behind that car.
Well, also Ben went up the curb, and that rather jolted his car over to the right and into the Porsche. So perhaps thought there was a bigger gap than was available to him.
This is the 62 crew trying to refit the rear bodywork to the Ligier.
And even though they know that it will go on because it's a perfect fit, it's just a real struggle. Now that's the 85 car, isn't it?
Oh dear.
The 85 car's race is going from bad to worse, and was that involved in some contact as Fabian Michel desperately tries to spin it into the right direction. It's taken again some advertising hoarding with it, but how on earth did it end up there? Adrian Schiller up to 2nd place, Shahan Sarkissian now toying with a podium, and Michel across the line, well, recorded in 4th, but it'll be no, maybe he will be 4th.
Yeah, he's got Romano Ricci right behind him, but we've now got a big old hoarding on the runoff. So what happened here? I think he did it by himself, you know. Over the curb, spat it towards the inside. Was very lucky that wasn't a much bigger hit.
Yeah, it was fairly substantial. There's tyres behind that, thankfully, before you get to the Bear Armco.
We might get a full course yellow here for that to be recovered.
Yeah, because he brought it back onto the track with him, and
We
although
are
it's not on
indeed
the racing line.
Going to full course yellow in about 30 seconds, and that will be to recover the Total Energies, partner of the Michelin Le Mans Cup and the European Le Mans Series. And purveyor of fine petroleum products will offset the loss they've got for the loss of a advertising hoarding.
I'm sure. He's not on commission, Graham, by the way, but it sounds like he is.
Oh, and there's another hit!
And that's the 6 A&S car, isn't it?
Again.
Yeah, on. Which car has spun around as a result and removed the bullet, which could be a key issue as well. So car 84, which was scrapping for position for that. And is that
now?
So, hang on a minute. Is that teammate into teammate?
It was. It's the 2 A&S cars.
It's the 2 A&S cars down the inside.
Oh.
And I'm getting memories of Aragon last year when the Cool Racing LMP2s found one another.
Looks like it's been machine gunned, doesn't it?
It does. Now that's the tyre wall,
yes,
and the bare tyre wall after the Total Energies banner was removed from it.
They may decide that that band has to be replaced as well, because that's torn the band behind it.
Okay, well, there's a slight tear. The bullet, what you said, bullet holes, it's actually, that's where the bolts fit in, isn't it, to keep the rubber band in place. And most of those still seem to be in their correct location. As
that's why the full course yellow.
Yes, because it's just been nearly collected again and dragged along the road surface. So a full course yellow, instruction to bear right on the exit of turn 14. Now, in a Michelin Le Mans Cup race, a full course yellow doesn't close the pit lane. However, it is still too early to be making a stop. If this was 45 minutes in, it won't be a different story. Nice bit of footwork there.
Absolutely.
So
You're signed up for Blackpool, mate.
he's in the right colours for a start. But yes, running from one side of the track to the other, and also finding the time to boot a bit of debris, a bit of advertising hoarding with him as he crossed, and now arranging the tyre wall potentially.
What he's doing is taking the rest of the torn hoarding off, because otherwise it's just going to flap away in the slipstream of the cars as they pass.
True.
So just get rid of it.
Yeah, and there's a risk of more of it being brought onto the road surface, I suppose,
Absolutely.
in the wake of race cars.
Here's our leader. It's been quite the opening spell, hasn't it, from Jamie Falvey. Looked initially as if he was losing ground hand over fist to the 85 car. Caught, stuck with, caught again and passed the 85 car. Then it's all gone wrong for Fabien Michel.
Still checking that rubber belt.
I think that's what they're looking at, is to see if that's secure.
Yeah, and that a section of it has not torn away. Here's the 62 car. It's turned into a sorry race for this
Back
side of the
again.
Breton Racing garages. Warding.
Going back to see whether or not any further intervention is going to be required. We'll find out soon enough. Celia Martin, by the way, leads and leads well on Matt Kurzejewski. So Lamborghini on Ferrari, third is the Audi, Darren Malkin, fourth is the Porsche. We'll see again what caused that damage. Looking to the left of the screen, and when this clip gets moving, you'll see the 85 car come into shot. Well, we apparently won't. We are going back to green flag racing in about 10 seconds time.
Yeah, so it was a spin as a result of whacking the curb and really unsettling the car for Fabien Michel. We were talking about consistency. Clearly Michel, as we go back to green, is a quick bronze driver, but needs to eliminate those sorts of mistakes if he's going to potentially be winning trophies every month and to be high up in the championship points, which obviously he would dearly love to be doing.
Fabien Michel has lost another place on the restarts to Romano Ricci.
Interesting. So they're counted out of the full course yellow, normally by their engineer, who's got the voice of the race director in their ears. So it's sort of a second mess. Oh, now on cold tyres, I'm guessing the Hegerle by T2 Racing car goes wide and spins for the second time in the race. And who then in the timing screen was right behind? Was that the other? No, that wasn't the other Breton Racing car. Trying to work out who had to go wide. It might have been the Edex Sport of Patrice Lafargue who had to go wide at turns 6 and 7.
Drama for GT3 in the leader. It's 10-second time penalty to be added to the pit stop for the race leader, the Iron Dames, for a start infringement. So the 83 car currently has a 10-second lead. 9.953 seconds.
Could still win it, maybe. Depends on what goes on for the remaining bit of this race. But yeah, you build a 10-second lead and then it will evaporate entirely in the next pit stop. Side-by-side Ferraris, this is the overtake we've been waiting for. Custodio Toledo finally breaks the stranglehold of Andrew Gilbert.
And finally makes it stick, and poor Andrew Gilbert, who actually doesn't give that up, takes it back again. And for good measure, Custodio Toledo gets a slap up the side from an Inter-Europol LMP3 car passing. So Andrew Gilbert kept his cool there, looked like he was in trouble, looked like he was slightly flustered by the LMP3 cars around him. Nothing of it. It was the AF Corsa Ferrari that had the problem.
Yeah, so very impressive to keep his head throughout all of that. And Andrew Gilbert still ahead of Toledo is the result. Now a spin into Virage Dupont.
It's the same.
Round and round and round again for ANS.
Yeah, that's it. It's not been a happy time, has it, for ANS? And oddly enough, puts them back in the same vicinity as the car it had the tussle with earlier, its team car.
When they made contact, you mean, at Virage Dupont a few laps ago.
Getting very close down to the pit window, Johnny. Yeah. 5 seconds is the gap, Jamie Falvey to now Adrian Chilla. 8 seconds back to Shahan Sarkisian. Then Romano Ricci is right with Sarkisian, with Fabien Michel right there as well. But remember, Michel has to serve an extra 13 seconds. Trouble for the 50 Reiter Engineering car now, first Filbermeyer. In GT3, the Iron Dames lead by 10 seconds, but have a 10-second penalty to come.
And it's Gilbert slowing, Andrew Gilbert slowing in the Kessel Racing Ferrari. Didn't look to be the same speed as Toledo. Was that another moment? Oh, he's had to go in avoidance to get by Felbermeyer's spinning car, so he was recovering from that.
Because that and filth on the tyres, I'm sure.
Totally, yeah. So
massively unlucky there.
Having judged the previous incident at these corners to absolute perfection, where it was sort of carnage around, but Andrew Gilbert kept his head. At that time, the innocent party again, in actual fact. Horst Felbermeyer spinning in the Reiter car and basically taking Andrew Gilbert with him.
So much incident in this race, again.
You did say that that would be the case. Funnily enough, the two cars from the same team that were involved in contact at Virage du Camp, that's going to be looked at as well.
Yep.
Because it makes no odds which teams are involved.
It's about driver behaviour.
Yeah. So, and again, it's probably fairly conclusive as to which of those cars was at fault, but we'll wait for an official decision. Shahan Sarkisian keeping his powder dry in this second race of the season, running in third. Pressure now from Romano Ricci. So we wouldn't have necessarily had these two cars as potential podium finishers, but they are avoiding the problems for those around, and behind them is a recovering Fabien Michel for RAce GP, number 85.
He doesn't seem to have the pace anymore. He just doesn't seem to have it. Fabien Michel now in the 153s and not able to challenge. Here's the 51, starting to get pit stops and driver changes now. 12 Kessel Racing car, Frederick Jousset is on pit lane. Second place car of Matthew Kozajewski. In. Stella Motorsports' Darren Malkin is in third place. His car 24 will be getting a drive-through penalty for causing a collision. That is Darren Malkin.
The Audi, yeah. Well, it was Malkin's mistake which caused a spin, the second bit of Bose, wasn't it? I forget now which car was involved.
I think that was the Porsche, wasn't it? No, it wasn't.
The Huber car, no, that was a separate incident. I'll look back through the race control messages to find out which incident they were investigating, but unsurprisingly, for the GT teams that started with bronze drivers, they're looking to try and get those drivers out as early as possible and get the pit stops done.
Well, only 3 of our GT3 runners are not currently on pit lane. The first of them is the race leader, Celia Martin. 73 Proton Huber Porsche has not pitted, neither has the delayed biogas Ferrari. Everybody else on pit lane are working their way through what should be, am I right, 160 seconds on pit road.
Correct.
For all bar this car, which will serve 170 because of a start infringement by the starting driver, Celia Martin.
Yeah.
Now we're starting to get LMP3 cars on pit road.
Darren Malkin's collision was with Frederick Jousset in the Ferrari, number 12, Kessel Racing Ferrari, which ended up very close to the tyres at the end of the lap, but didn't quite make connection, but he had to rejoin, and then there was smoke trailing from the back of the 12 car. That has just done its stop, and David Fumanelli takes the car over, so fireworks in the right sense will begin.
Seem to be looking to secure the front bodywork, say the bonnet, of the number 18 Porsche for high-class racing, so there's attention being paid there. Jamie Falvey continues to lead, but is actually just edging away from Adrian Chilla. This RSGP stop now on pit lane. Fabien Michel, remember that will be 173 seconds for that car. That's an adjustment in time for Michel's pace, and trouble for CD Sport is, isn't it?
Is this Sarkisian? No, it's not the 11. Oh, hang on.
It's
Sarkisian's in the pit lane, so it's not that one.
It's Christian Short.
Yeah.
Looks to have had a spin by himself. 87 on pit lane. James Swetnam.
So still waiting for the crucial seconds, and 2 minutes and 40 of them to tick by, which will feel like an age. but it's done that way because some of these teams are brand new to endurance motor racing and to the nature of a hurried pit stop, so make sure that everyone can do their jobs without risking any safety issues. Here they all come again, virtually in the same order. The Ferraris have switched around because of the Gilbert incident when he was avoiding the 50 spinning prototype of Reiter Engineering. But Porsche, Ferrari fire back onto the racetrack. They were 3rd, 4th and 5th. Looks like they're going to rejoin in 5th, 6th and 7th because there are still cars ahead of them that need to stop.
This pair came in nose to tail.
They did.
They'll come out nose to tail.
But in a different order now because Gilbert already has got ahead. Sorry, it won't be Gilbert anymore. It'll be his teammate, number 74, who is Fran Reder.
Oh, that was a great move.
Fran Reder to the high side of Riccardo Agostini, who metaphorically was still doing his belts up, I think. Still getting himself sorted, radio on, and all of a sudden swooping to the left-hand side is the orange and black Ferrari.
We're about to see how quick Celia Martin has been since she got the note that the penalty was coming. Karen Gaillard getting aboard the car. 10 seconds to be added here. This is going to be really, really close, Johnny.
Yeah.
We're under an hour to go, 50 minutes already done. Incidents galore. Support from above the pit building by the sound of it.
Great to hear.
Jamie Falvey still staying out at this stage. Why shouldn't he at this point? So we'll watch this car being held, and where is it going to emerge? Of the cars that have stopped, 51 car of Alexander Balzan is ahead of Kian Jewis in the Stella Motorsport car. With this pit stop underway, will Audi be involved in a podium battle here still? I think it probably is going to be. Got another stream of LMP3 cars. 85, Adrian David has come out of the pits in 14th place, but with only one car ahead of him, it still requires a pit stop. So that's the impact that 13 seconds has had.
So the 83 Lamborghini still ahead on the timing screen of the 51 of Alessandro Balzan.
Jimmy Falvey.
Falvey from the race lead.
Great stint from him.
Looks like Georgios Kolovos then will lead this lap. He came into the pits earlier on, but that will have been, well, slightly more than a drive-through. It takes 25 seconds to do a drive-through at the Le Castellet circuit. So he stopped with the team for 9 or so seconds, but he hasn't yet done the 2 minutes 40 for Graf.
Correct.
He's the only one now that hasn't done the pit stop, I think I'm right in saying.
I think you're absolutely right. In fact, he comes in now.
Okay.
As the final pit stopper.
Yeah.
So we're about to get what we should have as a running order for the remainder of this race. Ryan Dame's more or less ready to go, being positioned to go. And we'll soon see just exactly what the state of play is in GT3, and I think the 51 car has gone through to lead.
The reason why Karen Gaillard was spun through 45 degrees there was because the Team Tour car was pitting right in front of them, and I'd already remarked earlier on in the weekend what little distance there is between each of the cars when they are assembled in the working area nose to tail. So you can do that to make the exit more successful. Here comes Georgios Kolovos from the race lead. He only led effectively one lap. Jamie Falvey, in fact, still being called as the race leader from the pit lane, and Kolovos now with an extra lap on Falvey.
Ken Jewis has been down pit lane again. Has he had a drive-through?
The Jewis car, yeah, 25 seconds is the drive-through, yes. So has he taken that car over and then straight back in again?
But was he dealt a drive-through? I thought they had 10 seconds to add. I wonder if they forgot to add the 10 seconds.
And they've now thought, well, we'll do a drive-through instead. Not sure it necessarily works like that.
I'm pretty certain it doesn't. I think that might be a mistake from Stella Motorsport. We'll wait to see what occurs here. So Georgios Kolovos on pit lane, was scored as the race leader at that point. Jamie Falvey still on pit lane. David Drew is back on track and working on closing the gap to Jamie Falvey, who's now released. And we're about to be able to tell you exactly how this race is going to pan out for the remaining 55 minutes.
I reckon the Stella car, hang on a minute, is it the 24? Yeah, the 24 Audi did a 2 minutes 42, so that's the 160 seconds dealt with, but they didn't do the extra 10, so they'd then come in for a drive-through straight afterwards. But it's got to be added to the pit stop.
The problem is, if it's not been ordered by race control, it sort of doesn't count,
No.
and whatever good intentions you've got,
You've got to follow instructions, haven't you? So if you forget the 10 seconds, you then just have to stay out on the racetrack and wait for the second penalty to be issued, and they haven't done that. I'm sure those in race control will be like, well, it's really nice of you to come down and do a drive-through penalty for 25 seconds, but that's not what we told you to do.
looking here at, I think that's A&S. It is A&S. That's damaged the rear of the 84 car from that impact with the team car. Another battle. High-class racing, Scott Mulvin from Fran Wader and Riccardo Agostini. That is now for third place. The gaps in GT3, it's Alessandro Balzan that leads. He's got, what is that, about 10 seconds on Karen Gaillard. In other words, he's got the gap they served as a pit stop penalty.
Yeah. Yeah, so the extra 10 seconds, I assume, were observed by the Lamborghini. 2 minutes 50 it should have been.
3:01, they lost 10 seconds. And was that with repositioning the car?
Yeah, maybe. Although you would have thought they would have done that well in advance. So they've actually taken an extra 20 seconds, which was not the request from race direction.
So leading the race, 54 minutes to go, Manea Stefan, Team Virage, the 44 car, 8 seconds ahead of David Drew.
So the Ferrari number 51 of Alessandro Balzan knows this position because he was in it for Barcelona, taking that race win. But we've had just over an hour, or nearly an hour, and as we got underway at 10 to 6 this evening with the second race of the season for the Michelin Le Mans Cup. It was side-by-side action at the head of the order, but the 85 RSGP car did manage to retain the race lead. All hell breaking loose though behind, with so many cars, too many to count really, over the black and blue stripes synonymous with this place. Le Castellet, Circuit Paul Ricard, one or two others straight lining, including Team Tour as well, as we were concentrating on the two spinning Duquesnes, one from Hegerli by T2 Racing and the other Stella Motorsport example. Then Georgios Kolovos picked up one of the directional arrows, and that was right across the graph nose, number 9. Then a spin for the Biogas Motorsport Ferrari for, at the time, Spanish driver Josep Mayola. He's now handed over to fellow Spaniard Marc Carroll for the second stint. But this was all within the bronze opening 45 minutes. And this was rather ambitious as well, from Custodio Toledo up the inside of the Drysoft-driven car, Jorg Drysoft, who, for obvious reasons, well documented, we did not see racing in Barcelona, but it's brilliant now under the circumstances to see Proton Huber competition as part of the action. The moment where Darren Malkin outbraked himself and into the rear of the Frederic Jose driven Kessel Racing Ferrari. Jose was able to rejoin, but with some tyre rub from that rear left wheel arch, and the Audi would cop a penalty as a result. Very wayward moment for the Porsche Huber competition Porsche, and neatly cleaned out an LMP3 car as it reversed across the racetrack. And this was probably the third incident for A&S Motorsports, number 6, driven by Clement Moreno, after Moreno had made contact with his teammate, his fellow A&S runner, number 84. Great overtake for the race lead. Jamie Falvey on the RSGP car of Fabian Michel through traffic and judged it to perfection. Michel tried to fight back on the exit of Beausset, but it was too little too late. More action in LMP3, there's been no shortage of it, with another great overtake there past the number 17 EDEC car, and then into the first corner. A little bit too much curb this time for Clement Moreno, and he gave the place away to Mark van der Snel in the Moore Motorsport number 99 car. Then, when RSGP were in a wonderful position, a very minor error from Fabian Michel, but it had big repercussions, slamming into the tyre wall at the start and finish line, and this was Clement Moreno into the side or rear of the number 85 car, 84 car, removing the rear bullet of Julien Lemoine's car. Lemoine will not have been happy about that, particularly when he found out which car was involved in the contact. So it's the 51 Ferrari that leads GT3, and it's this Team Virage car of Minea Stefan now, number 44, that leads outright. And confirmation that after 28 laps, it's a 3.6 second advantage, Minea Stefan over David Drew's Cool Racing number 97. Alexandre Cugnot for M Racing, leading CD Sports, William Gosselin for third and fourth, and then Rick Cohn and Wayne Boyd for Inter Europol competition, and Nielsen Racing. And then further down the order there in the grey, with a grey background on the graphic, is the 51 Ferrari of Alessandro Balzan, the Ferrari that he shares with Matt Kurzajewski. They were winners in Barcelona, and they're on course at this stage to take another victory because, inexplicably, Iron Dames served their penalty during the pit stop, but they then served an extra 10 seconds, it seems, after Karen Gaillard rejoined. 3 minutes she spent in the pit lane when it only needed to be 2 minutes and 50.
Correct. Meantime, drama's on track as David Drew in the 97 Cool Racing car is closing the gap and closing quickly on Minea Stefan for the lead. Potential dramas as well for two of those teams that we saw being dealt penalties. Breton Racing's 26 car and also the other Cool Racing car, the 87, being called to race control for not serving the penalty properly. Have been told, by the way, by Jeff Carter in the media office here that we may have misread what we saw on we thought we saw on the screen. It was a drive-through penalty for Stella Motorsport shown on their screens, and it may well be that they served that properly.
Fair enough. That's on our head entirely. Ferraris still doing battle. It's the same colour schemes, it's the same Ferraris, just different drivers this time. Fran Rueda, who had a really good Barcelona round, versus the number, remind me, 88 car, isn't it? Riccardo Agostini.
And what is this? This is the RSGP. Little bit of side contact there with the Iron Dames car of Karen Gaillard. She is 16 seconds back from Alessandra Balzan, so it looks to me as if Balzan is driving away here in the lead. 26th and 27th place, but the time gap between is growing. So it is AF Corsa Ferrari from Iron Dames Lamborghini, from High Class Racing Porsche, from the second AF Corsa Ferrari, Riccardo Agostini still embroiled in this fight. That fight that goes back towards Agostini again. It's a bit side-to-side contact here. And the Kessel Racing car gets muscled to the side. Fran Rueda won't have enjoyed that moment.
No, but he will have enjoyed the initial overtake that he managed to pull off on Agostini as they both left the pit lane, but unfortunately it's now not going the way of Kessel Racing.
47 minutes to go, and fights everywhere. New fastest lap of the race goes to Adrian Grozomir, but that is a car that at the moment may well be in some significant trouble. 150.451. Interestingly, we think there was a 10-second penalty, Johnny, yes? But it's 2 minutes and 52 seconds on pit lane, so that should be okay.
2 minutes 52, yeah, because that's the 2 minutes and 40 that everyone has to take.
And the Breton Racing is a 2:53.
Okay.
So I don't quite understand what's not been done properly there. We'll wait and see what race control tells us.
Not serving the penalty correctly. Were they working on the car? Because you can't touch the car during those 10 seconds. They may well have served an extra 10 seconds. By the way, Jeff Carter absolutely bang on the money, so thank you, Jeff, for pointing that out to us. There have been 2 drive-through penalties issued so far in the race. The other one to car number 6.
That was for contact with the 84.
It was, and there is 25 seconds sitting next to Nicolas Schatz's name as well, so that rather suggests that's been ticked off too. Yeah, but the other question then is, why are these pit stops now under investigation for not serving the penalty correctly? Car 26 and car 87. 26 was 10 seconds to be added, and 87 was
10 seconds. I'm sure it was.
Was it that was one of the ones before the race? Yes, it was, because it was the Swetnam one carried over from qualifying, wasn't it? So it won't be on my race control messages in race, because there was a bulletin issued before we got going.
I can only think there was something procedural about the way in which those penalties are served. I don't know, don't understand, I'm not going to hypothesise.
Yeah.
Let's talk about racing, because David Drew, by the way, is now right with Manair Stefan as we've got another battle underway. This is Scott Malvern under pressure from Riccardo Agostini, and this is for a podium position. 45 minutes to go. High Class Racing's 18 Porsche. We've got two white and blue Ligers with the RSGP car right behind. Nielsen Racing's Wayne Boyd under pressure from, it seems, age-old rival Colin Noble. With this GT battle, apologies if you had lost sound for a little while there.
In fact, through the last split, David Drew shown as being ahead of Manair Stefan. So 58 thousandths of a second. It depends which split they went through. They were probably absolutely side by side down the Mistral straight on that occasion. Drew just ahead, but the question is who was on the right side of the circuit for senior corner. Now the Porsche and the Ferraris go side by side, and Agostini trying to send Scott Malvern out of his stride. Agostini up and over the curb. They'll be heading door handle to door handle through the kink at 6 and 7, but Malvern with the better run onto the Mistral.
Brilliant stuff with this pair, and squeaky clean at this moment. I know I said that out loud, but squeaky clean at that point, and catching them, by the way. Fran Raiders right here as well. So all sorts going on here. David Drew it is to the lead, by the way. We can confirm with Manair Stefan now dropping behind. Well clear of Alexander Coignot. Here is all the rest of the LMP3 cars in the world.
It feels like that, and it feels like they've got literally thousandths of seconds between them looking down the screen.
Well, Wayne Boyd has been a big loser in this group because he's dropped behind not just the charging RSGP car, which is cleared now, Team Tour car of Colin Noble. There's two more cars behind, then we get to Wayne Boyd. So I think there's been some argy-bargy, and there's a bit more there again.
Well, the CD Sport car was trying to thread the eye of the needle there, so that's William Gosselin, and now Gosselin can't get across the track to defend from the 20 car of Tommy Foster.
There's still further contact there, that involved the CD Sport car and Wayne Boyd. So it's Drew, Manair Stefan, Alexander Coignot, Rick Hearn in the 34 into Europol car. And then we get into a group with Hadrian David, Colin Noble, Tommy Foster, William Gosselin and Wayne Boyd.
And there is a reminder and a reality that David Drew is now ahead of Manair Stefan. 97 leads the 44 by pretty much 2 seconds, albeit a thousandth. And then 20 seconds further back down the road, Alexandre Cugnot, not really a threat to the top two, but he is going to have to be concentrated on the door mirrors because Adrien David may well be about to catch. I know he's doing a similar lap times. Then the craziness of the queue is in behind because Rick Cohn of Inter-Europol competition is there, as is Colin Noble, Tommy Foster, Wayne Boyd, William Gosselin and Nicholas Bourne. You could probably lump into that as well.
Gordon Gudmundsson watches on. There he goes. Not easy to stir the emotions of the man with the volcano instead of a water feature in his garden. But
there was a little grin for the camera though there.
It was a grin for the camera.
He knew you and I were watching him, you see. Probably telling jokes. And Gordon Gudmundsson happy at the moment with Team Tour's progress. That's because Colin Noble is in 6th position, but definitely within touching distance of Rick Cohn and Adrien David. Question is, can he get any further up than that? Because that's when the gaps become rather large, particularly Minea Stefan to Alexandre Cugnot. 20 seconds. I'm not quite sure how that has ended up to be such a large margin.
So car 87 and 26, 10 seconds added to the race time for penalty infringement. I have a theory, and I'm not sure whether or not this is correct, but I'm going to chuck it out there. Are you supposed to serve the 10 seconds before you connect the fuel hose?
Yeah, they may have done it the wrong way around, but without reading the sporting regulations to find out when that penalty effectively has to be taken, I don't know. But you can't be touching the car, you can't be moving it into a position, for instance. So you know how the Lamborghini went up on the dollies and spun through 45 degrees. It's just stare at the car, don't touch it for 10 seconds. And if they did any sort of outside assistance, that would be deemed as not the penalty being served.
A quick shot of the Cool Racing garage there, and a significant personality in the middle of that shot. Madame Megavonde is the mother of our good friend, ex-Orica, TDS and Cool Racing team member, Anthony Megavonde. Madame Megavonde is, how can we put this, into her 7th decade, has served as a race marshal for many years, is a massive fan of motorsport, as we got side-by-side contact again between two cars. This time it is the Inter-Europol car and Team Tour, and Inter-Europol having none of that. That's Rick Kern and Colin Noble, but to complete the picture, wanted to be involved and is serving as the dead man's handle operator on the fuel rig for Cool Racing throughout this year. Well done, madam.
But was that exactly at the point when her son left the team?
Yes, I
Right.
think the two things are probably related.
I think they are as well. She's welcome to join the team, but I'm not going to work with her. So see you later.
Bumped into Anto earlier, happy boy, and delighted and very proud of his mum as well. He should be. Just goes to show, doesn't it? The passion, no matter what that passion is about motorsport, can be rewarded wherever you are in life.
Once it gets you, there's very little you can do about
Absolutely.
it, and you need to be involved virtually weekly, daily in your case.
All the time.
All the time, all the cars, all the teams. Just spewing motorsport stats and information.
Very popular at parties.
37 minutes to go. How about this for a fight, though, with the Inter-Europol competition car of Rick Cohn with a massive distraction, and in fact no longer, because Tommy Foster has got ahead of Rick Cohn then on the run into senior corner. And no sooner do we sort of deal with that long line of LMP3s, you look at another portion of the racetrack and you've got exactly the same going on here. Down the inside goes the number 17. Did it get it stopped? Yes, just in time. So that is Dino Lunardi on Frank Chapard, and Jens Chapard thrown out of his rhythm. So the Stella Motorsport car of Senan Fielding was there, ready to pounce, car 42.
Yeah, he's recovering well, Senan Fielding. He's up now into 17th place, and with other potential scalps to get, he's been super quick since they took on this LMP3 programme with Sylvain Guintoli. And I think we'll be saying a lot more about Senan as this season gets deeper. Who knows what dramas when we get to Le Mans and that storyline, what a cracking storyline that would be. I think Sylvain Guintoli interested particularly in doing the Le Mans 24 hours, but I think he'd take Road to Le Mans as a win. David Drew 3.2 seconds ahead now in the lead as we watch this further drama, and that's a spin for the 50 Reiter Engineering car.
Nicholas Bourne. There was a late change of driver for that car, wasn't there? Replacing Moritz Lohner, who did compete in Barcelona, but Lohner remains to be seen whether he'll do a little bit more racing. He's the sim racer turned full metal racer, isn't he? The real stuff.
Whereas Born is, I think he won in GT4 at the Nürburgring 24 Hours last year.
Yeah, certainly a name I know from Nordschleife competition, more so. But I'm sure he's enjoying his venture into ACO rules racing as well.
That group, by the way, that's contesting basically every place from 4th downwards continues to be nose to tail, and there's a further group a little further back contesting places up to 10th. So they're hunting in packs, these LMP3s. Look at them, it's magnificent.
They do tend to bunch up like this, and that's a result sometimes of overtaking GT traffic, but then also a quicker driver getting in for the second stint and the car being slightly out of position for the new driver. And you get this concertina effect. It's then very difficult to overtake once you've done the catching, because you're in with drivers of similar ability and similar consistency as well, fellow silver and fellow gold runners. That's the reason why I'm so surprised about that gap between second and third, that is still 19 odd seconds. Minea Stefan to Alexandre Cugnot.
So tyres going on the 26. That car's been off track a couple of times, maybe a puncture. As we've got the Proton Huber Porsche and the Blackthorn Aston Martin contesting what would be 8th place.
Plenty of viewers of our coverage. No doubt the sound's been
That's the Stella boys
massively. Oh, is it Stella? Okay.
Yes.
Well, maybe English speakers, they're perhaps enjoying our commentary. On the other hand, as I say, I'll stick with my first comment, turn the sound off, because they've got the sound of race cars the other side of the pit wall. At the end of the day.
Show what technology can do nowadays, doesn't it? Able to follow the race broadcast from the pit trolley.
There's the number 13 car of Alexandre Cugnot.
That's the M Racing car, isn't it?
It is, yeah, on course for a podium, started by Romano Ricci, and a nice view into the cockpit there of Cugnot's seating position.
Adrian David, by the way, is closing the gap to the 3rd place car. 3 seconds now, and has pulled away from Colin Noble. That gap 4.7 seconds. Colin, who's not been very well this week. Hopefully he's in good enough shape to be able to complete this race at pace. But, even if you felt well this morning, the concerted strains and stresses of driving an LMP car could well come into play. But at the moment, holding off the high-class racing car of Tommy Foster.
And it's not just a case of remembering how to do a quick lap around here and then allowing the muscle memory to take over, because a few moments ago Colin Noble had about 3 cars behind him, all trying to overtake at once, and you have to be living very much in the moment as well as knowing the circuit like the back of your hand. And sometimes those are the things, the concentration, yes, but the reaction speed are the things that suffer when you're feeling a bit under the weather.
I tell you, the group behind Alexandre Cugnot could catch him here. And is going to catch him. In fact, Adrian David now 2.4 seconds back.
At the same time, Cugnot's just found a couple of seconds on Minea Stefan, but it's not going to be enough. And yeah, for sure, the most closely fought position will be for 3rd place, because that's just about the best that any of those chasing runners can hope for now. 3rd step on the podium for maybe Adrian David, maybe Colin Noble, and then in behind him, Tommy Foster, Rick Cohn, Wayne Boyd, William Gosselin's not that far away either, and possibly even Marius Fossard a couple of seconds back. By the way,
still that 3rd place battle in GT. It's Scott Mulvin fending off, almost with a pole out the window, really, Riccardo Agostini. And they have dropped Fran Raid at this point. David Fuminelli comfortably behind the Kessel car. So Alessandro Balzan leads, 16 seconds still to the good, and holding that gap to Karen Gaillard in the Iron Dames Lamborghini. So AF Corsa 51 Ferrari leads in GT3, Iron Dames 83 Lamborghini second, then the high class number 18 Porsche before we get to the second AF Ferrari, then the 2 Kessel cars in the order.
Felipe Fernandez-Larza in the sky blue, as there's another spin for Hegerli by T2 Racing, and that takes a CD Sport car the wrong side of it as well. That was Chapar, possibly. Yeah, Samir Ben, and Frank Chapar was right behind him through the last split. So Samir Ben, was there contact?
Contact with the
might
Stella
well
car.
have been, yeah. It was certainly a lot of curb that pitched that 67 car into the spin, and the contact might have confirmed the rotation. Still no let-up in third position as Scott Mulvern appears at senior corner, almost with Riccardo Agostini on a tow rope, and it's been like that for the last probably half an hour or so.
Absolutely, traffic getting involved and giving a little bit of respite to the Porsche driver. Soaking up the pressure well. But, you can quite appreciate a couple of corners without the front end of the Ferrari appearing underneath his rear view mirror rather than in it.
It must also be so difficult to battle within GT3 when you've got all these LMP3 cars buzzing around you and you're not quite sure where they're going to go next. They have the better turn of direction, change of direction, and a better braking ability as well. But then there's this natural concertina on the exit of corners as well, and you've got to almost imagine they're not there as you hit the loud pedal.
Absolutely. Through come this group, and this is the group that involves that Stella car involved in the brush with the T2 Hegerli car. Selling feeling between the two cars now, but as soon as the Duquesne clears it, we're going to be back to nose-to-tail action for third place in GT3. Really presently. Good race, a good run here from the 99 More Racing car. They didn't have the best start to their Michelin Le Mans Cup career in Barcelona, but this is much, much better for the father and son duo. Max van der Stel.
Max van der Stel Jr., as he's listed on our screen currently, battling with Felipe Fernandez-Larza in the Rinaldi Racing
So there
car.
must be another
Max.
because Dad's Mark.
Indeed. Unless that's just a way of us remembering which is the youngest, which is most helpful. But I would imagine there's a senior Max somewhere else in the family. Here's the number 13 car of Alexandre Cugnot. And it's still 17 seconds, but it's much closer now to this 85 car, the Duquesne of Adrian David. Now, this was about 5 seconds, only 10 minutes ago.
So the key point here is how long and can the M Racing Ligier hold off the ever closer attentions. And behind, it is 4.9 seconds for Colin Noble. And what Cugnot will be hoping is that he can bottle this up to the point where Adrian David is as concerned about what's happening behind him as he is about what could happen in front of him. They both moved by Ken Jewis and the Stella Audi, make that pass without incident. He's going to be in a hurry to get by here.
Yeah, well, the pressure may be about to be telling on Alexandre Cugnot, who made a very slight error coming out of senior corner, taking a bit too much curb. And the more manoeuvrable of these two definitely appears to be Adrian David from the body language of the cars. David does not want to be delayed in any fashion, as you've said.
Yeah, quick shot the Stella Motorsport crew. And where are they doing? 18th overall for the LMP3 car. And we had that penalty, didn't we, that's dropped Ken Jewis down to 7th with the Audi. Back of shot there. But this is the real world battle for the final podium spot. The chasing cars are catching, but not quickly enough, I don't think, for the M Racing team's comfort. It's going to be an attack by Adrian David before I think we get to Colin Noble and Tommy Foster getting into this fight.
It is a shame for Stella Motorsport. They've got a quick car this weekend, and it's Ken Jewis' first attack at the Michelin Le Mans Cup as well, but they played serving the penalty absolutely perfectly. It was us that got it wrong. Ken Jewis' first job was to serve the drive-through, so an out-lap converted to an in-lap, and then finally could get underway after he trundled down pit road, which is just over 400 metres here. So it takes you 25 seconds or so. Now, it's still hotting up for this third and final podium position, but Adrian David is losing a bit of time here and there to Colin Noble as well. Colin had a deficit of 5 seconds last lap around. It's down to 4.5. And Noble to Tommy Foster is
Right
absolutely
there.
nothing either.
That's been the case for a little wee while. They're dragging each other along here. And again, taking that wide line, the RSGP car. Doing a good job of holding him off. It's sort of waiting to force an error here, isn't he? Doesn't want to take the risk of going side by side. Wants a clear and open path to it. I'm sure the team will be telling him at the moment there is no immediate risk from Colin Noble. It drops a bit of time, by the way, I think, as he catches. Here we go. Drops a bit of time as he catches the Audi. This time, a bit of a drag race. Well, there's a speed advantage, Duquesne versus Ligier. Used to be in straight line speed, no longer.
Yeah.
This redesigned JSP 320 significantly closer to the speed that we used to see. This car was still a Norma before Duquesne Engineering took over the project. It's a very much more even battle in a straight line now than it used to be.
Well, that was very nearly the classic late braking manoeuvre at Virage Dupont into turn 14. But you have to be so daring on the brakes, so late, that you prevent the car on the outside from even turning in and attempting to get to the apex. And Adrien David just wasn't quite close enough to his fellow Frenchman. Cugnot and Adrien David are of similar speeds, but I do think that the RSGP car's being held up here. And Colin Noble will wish that that continues for a few laps yet. There's the Reiter Engineering number 50 car turning left, Nicholas Bourne, and behind him is the Cool Racing car.
So that car's had a penalty, and the Reiter Engineering car has had an off, and they're still battling for potentially a top 10 position.
Yeah. So it's Adrian Klossmanil in the number 87 Cool Racing car, having to take that extra 10 seconds during the pit stop. Klossmanil taking over from James Swetnam.
Good defensive drive at the moment from Alexander Poignot. The chasing cars are getting closer. It's 4 seconds now, but it's not happening quickly, is it? It's 23.5 minutes to go. It could end up being a 4-car battle for the final podium spot.
That's what we'd like to see, because any chance of Cugnot getting closer to the top 2 has gone out of the window. So a battle for the podium spots is certainly on. What about Minae Stefan catching David Drew, or is that gap of 2.2 remaining fairly constant?
It's coming down. I've been keeping an eye on it. It is coming down. I was basically trying to work out my own mind whether David is managing that gap or he's losing that battle. It's one to keep an eye on. A little bit of up and down, I think, with traffic, but it is gradually coming down.
2.8 through the next split, so it's fluctuating a touch. But as you say, these two, Nicholas Bourne in the blue of Felbermeyer for Reiter Engineering, and the Cool Racing car of Adrian Klossmanil, that is far from decided. And then let's offer another duo, because these two have been together for basically the whole of their stints. Scott Mulvin took over from Nick Jones relatively early on in the, it's not as such a pit stop window, but it turns into that when you consider the 45 minutes minimum drive time. And as soon as Scott Mulvin took over the number 18 Porsche, Riccardo Agostini clambered on board the 88 Ferrari, and they have been virtually glued together ever since.
Well, you get the point, really, where you think that maybe Scott Mulvin's best opportunity here is to get him prosecuted for stalking, because it's just been like that for what, lap after lap after lap after lap. Meantime, the gap, Colin Noble to the back of Adrien David, now 3.3 seconds. All of a sudden it's coming down more quickly. Now, why is that? That is because they are managing the chasing pair to keep up their pace. The pace is going off a little bit from Poignot and Adrien David.
Here we go.
Now that may be the moment.
Adrien David up the inside of Alexandre Cugnot, and remember that David had tried that, was it the previous lap or the one before, and it was a sort of half-hearted effort. This time slightly more full-blooded. Was there contact though to force the number 13 car wide?
I'm not sure.
And was he fully alongside even if there was a bit of a touch?
I don't think there was any contact.
Okay, well that may well be investigated, but let's assume it was a clean manoeuvre. It wasn't as forceful as we've seen in previous years from other teams and cars. into turn 14, Virage Dupont, but eventually he got the job done, and Adrian David, not before time, can now start to scamper up the road. 20 minutes to go. It's a gap of 15 seconds to Minea Stefan, and actually Stefan now going the other way in terms of David Drew. So Drew was being pressurised within a gap of a couple of seconds. It stretched back out to 3.2 as Adrian David got a little too much to ask to whittle away that 15-second lead. He's only got 20 minutes to do it.
87 car dealing with traffic by way of the Stellar Audi. Keeping an eye on Kian Jewis and his progress. Sticking with the programme, his first weekend in this car. That car, of course, served the drive-through penalty. Without that, I think could well have been involved in this podium fight.
These two Ligiers well over to driver's right, to the left as we look at it, and it's still the 50 and the 87 virtually together. Nicholas Bourne, Adrian Klossmanil, they clear the Audi of Stella Motorsport, the Audi that runs 7th in GT3.
Side by side.
Here we go, yes. And for the first time, Agostini was a nose ahead, but Scott Malvern will have the inside line into Verrery. And can he fend the Ferrari off? No, he can't, because he wasn't then able to use the full width of the racetrack. Good car placement from Riccardo Agostini. Scott Malvern's not finished with it yet, though, and there's also some prototype traffic that want to get by this duo. They're not going to allow that just yet. And Malvern, how late on the brakes is he going to be into Virage du Camp? Again, in the wrong position on the racetrack, though, to the outside line, and Saint Baume corner will sort it out. Ferrari now definitely ahead of Porsche.
Well, we didn't see where that started. Looks to me as if it was likely to be a dive up the inside at the final turn, but finally, the AF Corsa car of Riccardo Agostini ahead of Scott Malvern after a Teutonic battle. Titanic battle. Teutonic is German. Well, I suppose it's correct for one of the two.
True. So here we go, the Porsche just picking up the toe, in fact, from passing LMP3 traffic.
Stefan, isn't it?
And he used it so well because Malvern's back ahead of Agostini. So it was Minea Stefan, and Scott Malvern thought, well, I'll use your rear wing as a way of buying a bit more kilometres per hour, and it worked a treat into Senior.
Well, what a cracking battle this has been. Colin Noble, by the way, just about in contact now with Alexander Coigneux for what would be 4th place, and has managed to drop Tommy Foster a little. All sorts going on up and down this field.
There's the 50 car, Felbermeyer liveried Reiter engineering car, and so we've talked a lot about Nicholas Bourne and Adrian Klossmanil, still in the same order. Riccardo Agostini will be absolutely kicking himself to have got ahead of Scott Malvern and seemingly in the clear, being guided to a podium, and then back came the Brit to mount the challenge on the AF Corsa run Ferrari. And Malvern, a better line into Verrery, possibly. He's been delayed, though, by these P3 cars.
So tough for these GT3 drivers, trying to find the correct line. He's in a fight of his own, but then here comes a little squadron of LMP3 cars. Same has been done behind him to Agostini with the 67 car, just at the point where he was looking to try and mount another little bit of an attack. He's got to lift out of it because there's a couple of P3 cars.
Yeah.
Really tough.
And it's always the job of the quicker car to find a way by, but there's always got to be a bit of give and take as well. So adaptive driving, just to allow some of these quicker cars through, because that means you get rid of them then. They are able to overtake you, and they're no longer going to pose a distraction.
Don't count out, by the way, Adrian David for 2nd place here. He's under 10 seconds back now from Minea Stefan, who, albeit he's had some problems with traffic, has dropped back from David Drew by 4.2 seconds. 154 last time around for the 2nd place car, 151 for David. We'll keep an eye on that pace. I think that was an outlier lap.
You may well be right. And again, the really good drivers in this series, and others too, can adapt accordingly. They can manage gaps, they can push when necessary, and live with the traffic as well. So sometimes a gap might come down, but it might all be part of the longer game plan.
Tommy Foster, by the way, back on the attack with Colin Noble.
There was a mistake there.
26.
For the 26 Breton racing car, which takes to the escape road. No contact, but just a slight out-braking or misjudgment on the braking there into the corner.
Car
Turn 3.
85 is under investigation for forcing a car off track. That will have been the M Racing car.
Yeah.
So there will be a determination made as to whether or not that was fair. Did he hold the correct line through that turn, or did he go far wider than he needed to do to force the car off track?
Yeah, there is a scenario, and some have done it in the past, where you just open the steering up at turn 14 and prevent the car on your left from turning in. Not necessarily suggesting that was the case, but that's very difficult to prove.
And it's Wayne Boyd there, just taking 7th place from Rick Kern in the 34-inch Europol car. His next target, albeit a little too far down the road with 15 minutes to go, is going to be Tommy Foster somewhere. And I think it may have been contact with the 77 car. Wayne Boyd lost a lot of time.
Okay, and is still recovering. Here's the 85, the one in question.
Damage on the front of the Porsche.
The Porsche of Scott Mulvern may be carrying
this damage.
What is it? Oh yes, it's the nose of the car that is working its way up. Now, I don't remember any nose-to-tail contact, although we haven't seen all of the battling between these two cars.
They were fixing, if you remember, with duct tape, that bonnet at the pit stop.
Oh, right, so it may well extend back to the Nick Jones stint then, perhaps. And now that tape is starting to be stretched to within an inch of its life.
Car 73 gets a 10-second penalty added to the next pit stop for a pit stop infringement. That is the Proton Huber Porsche, currently sitting in 8th place. It will lose it 1 place on the road, but not in class at this point. That'll be added at the end of the race.
And it's Manuel Lauch now driving that, having taken over from Jörg Dreishoff.
It's a name you will be familiar with, I'm sure.
Big time, yeah. Manuel Lauch, a regular around the Nürburgring Nordschleife in the domestic 4-hour races, but also in the 24 hours. Nürburgring 24-hour race at the end of this month, start of June, the week before the Le Mans test day, and that's obviously in turn the week before the 24 hours of Le Mans. Here comes Agostini then, trying to attack a potentially ailing Porsche of Scott Mulvern. Thankfully he just sits on the left-hand side of this car, so that rising, I was going to say bonnet, it's not a bonnet on a Porsche, but it's the nose cover, as now the Hegerle car is off the road again. And it's the Hegerle car, isn't it? Yeah, 67.
Did he get by? He did. I thought he did.
Yeah.
Maybe slight distraction from avoiding that spin. Or rather distracted by the car and the incident in front of him. But is Scott Mulvern going to be able to get back again? It's not going to help the aero on this car, is it?
But getting yourself tucked in behind the Ferrari certainly will do, as he's already proved by using one of the, here he comes, by using one of the LMP3s, and there's a, conveniently, the number 13 LMP3 car is there too.
That's Quagno.
And he's back ahead.
He's done it again, absolutely mega stuff. But this, in amongst them, that's Colin Noble, and that is the M Racing car ahead. So that is the battle for 4th place.
So Cunha and Noble want to wait by this Porsche, but it's not, and that's Tommy Foster as well now in the meat and the sandwiches. Oh, Mulvern goes wide in the Porsche.
But so too does Agostini.
Now that was door open for Tommy Foster. He'll be offered the same favour as they reach Mondor corner, the left-hander after the double droite. We tear away from that because there's so much action elsewhere, but I could almost stick with what's going on for 3rd place in GT3 and the LMP3s around all the way to the finish of this race. Ignore the Ferrari from Biogas, I don't mean that rudely, but they've not been in contention ever since really the opening lap. But it is finally great to see them competing in the Michelin Le Mans Cup.
12 minutes to go, and the battle to watch is this battle for 4th place overall. The M Racing car, there you go, the blue car with the orange-red nose strip, then the white and blue Team Tour car, then the red and white car of High Class Racing. And in fact, the 77 and the 20 both run by High Class, but there'll be no love lost in terms of taking those positions.
How close do you want to be as you cross the line there? That is Marius Fossar. I did mention his name earlier on for Racing Spirit of Le Mans, trying to go around the outside of Klossmanil, and Fossar in the black and gold gets the place, but then can't really control the car on the exit of the Verreries. He's still got his foot in fairness, but won't have the inside line now for Virage L'Hotel.
And on the inside goes the Reiter car, the 50 car of Miklesh Born. Put in, by the way, the fastest middle sector of the race in that 50 car. That's cracking stuff.
Yeah, probably getting a double toe off the company that he's keeping. And Klossmanil down the inside of Fossar on the end of the previous lap to get back ahead of the number 10. So all of a sudden it's like a snakes and ladders game, this, for Marius Fossar. Gained places one lap, now lost the two of them on the very next run down the Mistral. And picking up a bit of side draft, the number 50 car this time on the 87, and makes quick work of it. So that is Nicholas Bourne back in front of Adrian Klossmanil.
So a bit of trouble in the first stint. A couple of offs for the number 50 car. Going very well indeed. Top 10 now. William Gosselin is the next target if he can find some clear air. That is 1.6 seconds ahead.
There was a brief glimpse, there it is again, of David Fuminelli. Remember that Ferrari number 12, when it was in the hands of his co-driver, was heading towards the tyre wall in the background there after contact with the Audi, but at least it should get a race finish. They're running 6th.
Still battling away, the 10 car ahead of the 50 now.
But absolutely neck and neck, with Fossar on the outside line and the Reiter Engineering car, Nicholas Bourne, to the left of your shot. Nicholas looking for a better run into turn number 1, which he just about has on Marius Fossar, I should say.
What went wrong here? That's a big wiggle and a half, almost a spin, wasn't it? That's what went wrong for Nicholas Bourne.
And there goes Fossar, thinking about a late braking manoeuvre into Virage du L'Hôtel, but thinks better of it.
So all three of these cars in this battle have filled all three of those positions twice in the last lap.
Yeah, yes. Chopping and changing almost constantly, and they're not the only ones to be doing that. You're missing nothing at the front of the field with 9 minutes to go. David Drew building a lead of 5.4 seconds now over Minea Stefan. No doubt about it, the gap Minea Stefan back to relatively new third-place runner Adrian David. It is coming down.
Don't think quickly enough.
So it's gone from 15 seconds to 8.6, yeah. But he had 20 minutes of the race to go with a 15-second advantage, and it's been halved with more than half of that amount of race time already gone. So, yeah, it needs to up the pace, really.
One minor issue, though, could put it on its head, couldn't it?
True.
The battle still, by the way, in that lead group is between Alexandre Pagno, who has been caught by Colin Noble, who has been caught by Tommy Foster. Those three separated by 1.4 seconds.
Stella Motorsport battling with the other ANS car, which is now running rear right bulletless after being rudely assaulted by the sister ANS car.
Well, it's actually the other ANS car that Senna Fielding's trying to catch.
Okay.
1.4 seconds ahead of him. It's the number 6 car that's been its own troubles. Ask yourself what result might have been possible for the Stella car had they not had that lap 1 issue.
Now being driven by multiple French hill climb champion Nicolas Schatz, who made the move to circuit racing and prototype racing a good few years ago now. 5.5 seconds the difference between David Drew, Swiss racer for Swiss team Cool Racing, versus Romanian Minea Stefan for Team Virage.
Reigning Ligier European Series champion.
Yeah.
And I'm sure trying to follow in the footsteps of the prior champion.
Julien Henrion. Yeah, Julien Henrion now firmly ensconced in the European Le Mans Series paddock. That's the nice thing about being, first of all, a Ligier driver, Ligier European Series driver, then into Le Mans Cup, then into ELMS. You're always within the same paddock.
And with support to do it.
Yeah.
That's the key thing about this this staircase that Ligier built up.
True.
Is they are funding some of this young talent to make progress.
But the other great thing is that because you're rubbing shoulders with team managers and other drivers within the same paddock, then conversations can be had during the mealtime breaks, during other times in the quieter days leading up to the main race meeting days. There's the 51 Ferrari of Alessandro Balsan then, and this is deja vu from 3 weeks ago at Barcelona.
Untroubled,
yeah,
really.
It appears so.
They got into the lead, at least in parts, with an inexplicably long stop for the Iron Dames, but has driven away. So that gap was about 10 seconds, now 21 seconds to the good. Alessandro Balsan, proper pro, title-winning driver in North America, in GT3, GTD, and well, looks like on the way to a second maximum score, doesn't he? It's Tommy Foster trying to chase down Colin Noble, trying to chase down Alessandro Quagno. They're running out of time to do this. There is the trio batting away for 4th place.
Into single digits of minutes remaining in the race. Scott Malvern, unbelievably, still ahead of Riccardo Agostini, despite the Porsche starting to disassemble itself around him.
Yeah, also should say, by the way, did have a note on the screens a moment ago to say there was an incident regarding contact between these two at turn 6 a little while ago that's under investigation.
Turn 6 was when they were potentially leaning on one another. That's the right-hander at Saint-Baume, named after the large mountain, sort of bare rock face that you can see in the distance. And leaning okay, because if they both got onto the Mistral Straight at similar speeds, they might both get away with that. That hasn't caused the problem on the nose of this Porsche, though, we think.
No, I think that was pre-existing. It would be a shame if a penalty affected this, because it's been a brilliant fight.
True.
And actually, it's been a really clean fight. It's been elbows out, but it's been a really clean fight.
Yeah. Just
exactly what you want to see with GT racing.
You stole the words from my mouth there. That's too right. I'm a touring car fan at heart, and they can be grand touring cars as well. A bit of shoulder-to-shoulder barging, as long as it's otherwise clean, should be permitted. I think the Astons were certainly up to that in ELMS at Barcelona, I remember. Thoroughly enjoyed watching that down at turns 1 and 2. And if you've still got both door mirrors intact at the end of the race, then you've not been trying hard enough. Here we go.
Again.
So
Deja vu.
Riccardo Agostini's nose of his Ferrari right underneath the rear wing of the Porsche of Scott Malvern. Malvern elects to put the car in the middle of the racetrack. Headlights absolutely ablaze. He didn't get off the corner too well, though, Scott Malvern. And depending on where the Ferrari could go...
Oh, there's contact, and we saw the beginning of that, didn't we?
We did.
There's contact front to rear, but again, Scott Malvern not giving this one up. There's yet again an LMP3 car. There's contact that time.
Definitely.
And this time, Malvern's contact, does it play part? It did then for a moment, but again, the Ferrari makes it through.
Now, Malvern can't afford to be too far off the back of this Ferrari as they hit the Mistral. The problem is there's an LMP3 car in the way, and that might be all that she wrote now, because the Ferrari could disappear into the distance. However...
Look behind Scott Malvern. That is Fran Raider. He's caught them, and that's for position.
Yeah.
So now he's got Ferrari's front and rear.
Well, that is the issue for jostling for so many laps. You're not pounding round at your optimum pace. And somebody else that has been doing, Fran Raider, keeping his powder dry. The first of the 2 Kessel Racing Ferraris is coming. David Fuminelli's too far back to get involved, but definitely there could be a change, and maybe it's going to be for 3rd position. But he'll have to overtake 2 cars, the Spaniard. He'll be well up for this. It's a warning flag for abuse of track limits to Scott Malvern, but nothing more serious so far. That's not an answer, though, to the potential contact between the Porsche and the Ferrari.
See just exactly who would emerge from there, because I thought Fran Raider was in an ideal position to attack on the Mistral Straight, and indeed he has got by Scott Malvern.
Yeah. So there's the Porsche. What you're not seeing is Fran Raider's orange and black Ferrari of Kessel. There it is. So it's now ahead of the Porsche, and comfortably ahead. He's managed to well, 2 LMP3 cars have plugged the gap since the overtake. And now can Fran Raider focus the crosshair on the back of Riccardo Agostini? Because if Agostini's been having contact with Scott Malvern, that Ferrari will be far from its best. Everybody's far from their best now, with an hour and nearly 50 minutes to go, to have gone, I should say. And the cars will be rather second-hand, showing the trials and tribulations of this mini enduro race.
Under 2 minutes to go of this race. Car 17 will be investigated after the race for track limits. That is the DEC Sport car Dino Lunardi. It's not a car in a point scoring position. Still, this has potential to change. This is the 97 car leading the race, 7.7 seconds ahead now, David Drew, and seemingly cruising here. Last time, I'm told by Jeff Carter, David won a race in the Michelin Le Mans Cup with Spa in 2022.
So it's been a fair old wait. Spa in that year, I think, was the September meeting as the penultimate event of the ELMS package, the Le Mans Cup this time.
Shares the car with Adrian Schiller.
Yes.
Adrian Schiller's last Michelin Le Mans Cup win was Road to Le Mans #1 in 2019. He was there, of course, ELMS champion this year.
Yes, and Schiller then has spent some time away from the championship. It's not as if he's been committed to Michelin Le Mans Cup for that period of what will be 4 years. Three abreast.
All three.
all in the same shot, as the number 13 car still yet to be overtaken by Colin Noble. So Cugno staying ahead. We are onto the final lap for David Drew, but understandably we're focused on this 4th, 5th and 6th place fight. So Cugno, Colin Noble, Tommy Foster, they were 3 abreast down the main straight. They in fact stayed in the same order, but it could all change now as they head onto the Mistral. So through Saint-Baume at turn 6, the unnamed little kink that leads you onto the Mistral straight. Now, how close can Colin Noble get to the number 13 M Racing car?
And no traffic that's going to bother them, certainly until they get into the last knockings of this lap. Meantime, drama's still down the field, the 10, the 2, and Fran Raider there.
So it's Marius Fossard and Frank Chapard, isn't it? Those 2 drivers have been bolted together as well. No, William Gosselin now, I should say. So Gosselin, the number 2, trails Marius Fossard. 2
corners to go, though, Johnny.
So approaching Virage du Lac, now Virage du Pont. And for the first time in a long time, it's the duo with Cool Racing, David Drew and Adrian Schiller, who will cross the line as the winners in the 2nd race of the season for the Michelin Le Mans Cup.
But behind, who's going to come home second? Because Adrian David has caught Manea Stefan, and he just makes it by 0.725 of a second. Manea Stefan keeps 2nd place, but it went right to the flag. What about 4th? Alexandre Coignot, 13 seconds behind, but with his mirrors full of Colin Noble and Tommy Foster, and he fends both of them off. Of course, as Alessandro Balzan has come home as the winner in GT3.
A phenomenal effort in the end by Alexandre Cugno, because I thought his number was up with those. It wasn't just Colin Noble and Tommy Foster. Wayne Boyd and Rick Coomer very much involved with that as well, and Nicholas Bourne just a bit too far back, but he will complete his race in 9th position. And the GT3 win will go the way of 51, Alessandro Balzan, and again a win for Matthew Kurzaszewski. That duo on top of the pile for the 2nd race running, which means that they will head to the Road to Le Mans races with a big championship advantage. 54 laps the GT3s managed to complete, and on paper that looks to be a big victory over the Iron Dames duo of Karen Gaillard and Celia Martin. Nearly 20 seconds. The Iron Dames in the 83 fended off the approaches of the number 3 car of Riccardo Agostini. In fact, that was a comfortable margin as well, back to the 88, because basically the 88, Riccardo Agostini was held up so much by a superb challenge with Scott Mulvern. And it's unfortunate, actually, that the high-class racing Porsche only comes home in 6th place. It feels like they deserved a lot better than that.
Car 85, by the way, gets a 5-second penalty for forcing the car off track. That doesn't affect the standings, it affects the gap.
Yes.
So it will be the Cool Racing number 897 car, top step of the podium from Team Virage's number 44, and RSGP retain their podium spot despite a post-race penalty. The 85 car remains 3rd. That, Johnny Palmer, was as good a race in terms of racing and incident as we've seen in quite a while.
It's right up there. Yeah, it's a very good point you make. I mean, we talked about how unpredictable the race was going to be, and very tough to plan out your strategy through it, although the 45-minute drive time is relatively simple for strategists and engineers to work through. But they didn't necessarily expect that overtakes and battles would linger on as long as they did. Very often a car can catch and then eventually pass somebody else. It's rare then for those places to reverse a second time, but we had loads of that, both in LMP3 and in the GT3 category. That's the beauty, I suppose, of having the Mistral straight. It's a bit like the Dottinger Hoor at the Nürburgring. Long straight means that you've got a tow, and a car that you're not necessarily matched with through the twisty stuff, you can suddenly haul towards and overtake into senior. Wonderful stuff. There's a rooftop party here tonight, by the way, through till 2 o'clock tomorrow morning.
I mentioned that before. It's like you're asking for a free ticket.
I thought I'd got a free ticket. Oh man, don't let me down. No, but the posters are all over the place, and I hope that one or two are coming to this party, not necessarily knowledgeable about motor racing, and have caught the end of the Michelin Le Mans Cup, because we may have several new fans to be taking to Le Mans and the road to Le Mans, and also keeping tuned to this championship for the rest of it.
I thought you were going to say so I could actually spend the evening with them to educate them about the Michelin Le Mans Cup.
I think there's going to be lots of loud music, so it'll be just a Le Mans Cup geek sort of shouting at them, going, no, but look at this race between the two GT cars.
Just looking at the helmets of the driver climbing from the Cool Racing car with Drew written on it in absolutely massive letters. I think that's David.
Yeah, it's so he remembers which helmet to pick up.
Absolutely. There is David Drew in the background. So we're delighted with that. Picks up the winner's cap.
And after such an intense battle, it's always a wonder to me for them to just sort of be wandering around, not sure where to go next. Alessandro Balzan with a huge grin, though, because it's another win. And then now a smile breaks out on the face of David Drew as well.
David Drew, lovely, lovely guy. Alessandro Balzan, well, wears his heart on his sleeve and his face, doesn't he, there? He shows the passion still burns. But David Drew, once he's just given himself a moment to... There's no one to bounce off, is there? The camera's a fairly impersonal thing. The team are having to make their way down to this area. And it's an odd moment. Now they get to him.
They've been in isolation, of course, within the car, and the first thing what they want to do is this outpouring of emotion, but they want fellow co-driver and friends and relations to come down and celebrate with them. That has finally happened now, yeah. And congratulations, because it's been a long, long time for both Adrian Schiller on the left and David Drew on the right to take victory. As we said, back to 2019 has been the longest wait, and that was Adrian Schiller's previous victory in the first Road to Le Mans race within this championship, although he was a championship winner in ELMS last year. So there have been plenty of trophies going to the Schiller household. This is almost back to his traditional stomping ground.
So Cool Racing becoming, as we've said more than once, even today, quite the force in LMP3 racing, proving again, putting together a winning crew here in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. AF Corsa, meanwhile, look like the class of the field this season. The 51 crew, with Alessandro Balzan bringing that car home. Looked relatively untroubled once that gap had been sort of gifted to them in that pit stop.
Congratulations, nice
True,
job.
and yeah, then it was extending that gap, but it was a really good fight, I thought, between Celia Martin and Matt Kurzajewski in the opening half an hour or so.
Put this point forward. Okay, gaps are managed, etc., by professional racing drivers. The gap at the end of that race was 20.724 seconds. The penalty was 10 seconds.
Yes.
And then they served another 10 seconds.
They seem to.
Which
we don't quite know the reason for that, but it was certainly a tight turn to get the Lamborghini pointing in the right direction, because Team Tour were pitting immediately in front of them. Many tales to tell after that 56 lap encounter. Let's get the key one from the race winner.
I am joined by the race winners from LMP3, from the number 97 Cool Racing. First of all, David, you just brought the car home. A huge congratulations, your first win since Spa 2022, I think, here in Michelin Le Mans Cup. It was an interesting one for you.
Yeah, we actually, I went out of the pit P2, so I had to go for the gap for P1 overtake. I wanted to manage the tires because we had a bit of issues in Barcelona, which we had too much drag. And so I was a bit worried about this, but I could overtake and still manage. And I think we had a really good pace. And my teammate did an amazing job to bring me this car so close to the lead. That helps a lot.
Absolutely, and it was a brilliant start for you. P3, Adrian, and you are the reigning European Le Mans Series champion in LMP3, and you've proved why here.
Yeah, I'm very happy. The level of this championship is incredible high. I'm very happy to win my first race. Yeah, it was a difficult stint with two very fast drivers. I'm so happy to win with my new teammate and with Cool Racing, with with fantastic car that we have. So happy.
Brilliant. Well, enjoy the celebrations, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think actually, even though he's won around Le Mans during the Road to Le Mans event, this might mean more to him because it's a longer race and not necessarily affected by safety car either. So, the late evening entertainment at the Paul Ricard Le Castellet circuit was provided by the Michelin Le Mans Cup, as it so often is. And Saturday afternoon became evening during the race, and I'm sure many tales to tell will feel perhaps years older at the end of this event, with carnage at the start of it, cars going left, right and centre, and one of the directional arrows being picked up by the number 9 Graf racing car too, as they pick their way through the spinning machines. 2 Duquesnes spinning at the sequence of corners 3, 4 and 5, including the Hegerle car. That would not be the first time that number 67 Duquesne would rotate on the spot. And then down towards the first couple of corners again would go our eventual winner, but we really would have been hard pushed to have guessed that this early on in the piece. It was a cracking start from the 85 crew, but this was an overtake from Jamie Falvey on the then race leader Fabien Michel, and the 44 up the inside of the number 85 Duquesne, and Falvey able to defend as he left Beausset. A&S Motorsport, not Clement Moreno's finest hour, I think it's fair to say, not because of this incident after he was overtaken by the Van der Snell family for More Motorsport, but more to follow on the number 6 exploits. From a really good position, second at the time, the 85 car spinning out of Virage Dupont. This was Moreno misjudging his braking point, piling into the back of the 84, which just happens to be another A&S Motorsport run car, so teammate into teammate. The pit stop for the then GT3 race leader took rather longer than it needed to be. There were 10 extra seconds slapped onto the 83 pit stop, but it took 3 minutes in pit road, which was an additional 10 minutes. So it could have shaved certainly 10 of those seconds off, maybe because the Team Tour car was pitting right ahead of it and they had to get it up onto the dolly jacks. And that was perhaps the cause of the delay. The 97 car started to establish itself into a very handy position. Adrian Schiller handing the car over to David Drew, and as David has just remarked to Steph Wentworth in the pits, he was gifted this car in a wonderful position and also in a great condition as well. This was the moment where the 85 would pick up a 5-second post-race penalty that doesn't affect its position, but accused of forcing a car wide and off the track. Side-by-side contact on more than one occasion between Scott Malvern and Riccardo Agostini. Agostini eventually would wriggle free of the attentions of the high-class racing Porsche, and 3 abreast in the closing stages between Alexandre Cugnot, Colin Noble in the blue and white car, and Tommy Foster in the red and white of high-class racing. They would eventually finish in that order, but after a long wait for David Drew and even longer for Adrian Schiller, they are on top of the podium in the Michelin Le Mans Cup once again, and congratulations to Cool Racing as well for taking another victory in this championship. It is a win for AF Corsa in the 51 Ferrari for Alessandro Balzan and his teammate Matthew Kurzajewski. They make it 2 wins from 2 opening races. Confirmation then that after 56 laps, it's a win, and a win by 6.7 seconds for Cool Racing over Team Virage for Minea Stefan and his teammate Jamie Falvey. 3rd position to RHGP Adrian David and starting driver Fabien Michel, and then M Racing, Team Tour, High Class Racing ran across the line to see the checkered flag almost as quickly as I've reeled off the names. And we go straight to the podium. A reminder of the GT3 finishes. AF Corsa ahead of Iron Dames, ahead of AF Corsa. And here then in 2nd position, because we've already welcomed to the podium Adrian David and Fabien Michel after their 2nd place finish in Barcelona. They back that up with a 3rd place finish here. Team Virage drivers Jamie Falvey and Minea Stefan in 2nd. But it is a win for Cool Racing, number 97, for the starting driver, the bronze Adrian Schiller, who had to qualify earlier, and David Drew is co-driver. Let's hear the national anthem of the winning team. Cool Racing taking the race victory, and handshakes all around. Graham was trying to make a point to me off air there, and I'm not sure I fully understood,
well,
so why don't you just say it?
It's 12.5 seconds is the gap first to third after a cracking fight back from RSGP. But it's 12.5 seconds. They got 13 seconds in the pit stop to adjust for the performance of the bronze driver.
Indeed.
And you've got to say, that's about as spot on as it possibly could have been.
Because you give them 13 seconds back and they would have won by half a second.
Completely correct.
Yeah, and that also doesn't account for the spin that Michel had into the tyre wall, remember? We covered that in the highlights
and
package.
the 5 seconds penalty they got at the end.
Yeah, yeah. So
remove some out of the wash, doesn't it?
Remove some of that, and well, it's got to be based on something. And you know, presumably the statistics from Barcelona were presented to RSGP, and not that they have to accept it, but they've had to swallow that extra 13 seconds. I do wonder if Fabien Michel is supposedly so quick. Well, he was overtaken by Jamie Falvey in the number 44 car. So is there more adjustment to come later in the year?
I was about to say, for me, driver of the day, Jamie Falvey.
Yeah, especially for that overtake at Beausset.
Another look at that LMP3 classification. Top 3 teams deserved that. Alexander Quagno will feel disappointed with 4th, but boy, did he fight at the end to retain his 4th place. And then all the way down through that order. Big gap somewhere caused with, I think, first stint pace. That meant we had a gaggle of high-quality drivers unable to bridge that gap. But then you get into the Drivers' Championship. It is David Drew and Adrian Chiller, now equal on points with Fabien Michel and Adrian David. Jens Reiner Muller and Tommy Foster just 2 points behind. It could barely be closer.
No, well, they won in Barcelona, so they were already coming here as championship leaders. That's 6 drivers separated by 2 points then. Superb, but they are starting to break away from everybody else. We've only had 2 races, and the next time we race, they will be for 55-minute races. One on, I haven't seen the schedule for Le Mans, but it's normally a Thursday race
and Saturday.
And a Saturday morning race. That one was not in doubt. But on that occasion, it's a 15-point race win. Let's get reaction from we will in a moment get a reaction from GT3, because I know Steph Wentworth has already doorstepped the AF Corsa combination, so we will get to that in due course. However, before that, let's welcome to the podium in 3rd position Custodio Toledo and Riccardo Agostini. 2nd place going to the Iron Dames, and it's the Michelin Le Mans Cup version of the Iron Dames. Celia Martin, who began the stint, and Karen Gaillard, who finished that off after a terrific qualifying session for Celia Martin, taking pole position earlier today. But the win for the 2nd time this year will go to Matt Kurzajewski of the US and Alessandro Balzan, now a US national, but originally from Italy, as you might suggest, or might be able to guess from his name. And in a moment we hear the national anthem of the winning team, Graham. But
I was about to say, signs that this pair of new additions to the Iron Dames roster can be a factor this season.
Yeah.
And those sprint races at Le Mans always produce surprises.
So another wonderful result for AF Corsa. The 2 team cars are not really connected, other than it's Amato Ferrari's outfit that prepared both, but they got a 1-3 finish in the podium for the 2nd race of the year.
Yeah, good to see Sarah Bovey from the ELMS and, for that matter, the WC team, supporting her teammates here. Good race in GT.
Yeah.
All the way down through the order. And battles beyond this podium. In fact, there's an argument saying the better battles were beyond this podium. But I think, Johnny, this shows signs of being a fight for race wins and podium finishes that is going to stay alight all year.
I'm certainly encouraged by other manufacturers being involved, although you look at the top 5 and 4 of them again are Ferraris, even though they were slapped with an extra 10 kilos in the balance of performance. There's Michel Gatting nearest the camera, also showing support for fellow Iron Dames.
Would add to that point, it's a very good point, that we saw the Porsche with damage in that fight just throughout, and then you look beyond that to the Audi of Ken Jewis. He finished 29 seconds back from Scott Mulvin after a drive-through.
True.
So could have been in that mix as well.
Yeah.
So all sorts of factors to bring to play here. There is the result in GT3.
So AF Corsa, as I say, with a 1-3 finish, but the most important one is Alessandro Balzan and Matt Kurzajewski's victory to extend their championship gap. Iron Dames second place points, that's a further 18. They'll take 19 from the round because of their pole position earlier in the day. So here we go, points for 30 for Andrew Gilbert, for Fran Rueda, for Custodio Toledo and Riccardo Agostini. So that's 2 team cars, and then the Iron Dames in 4th position, just a few points further back. It's 5, isn't it, the deficit to the next team? But 51 points for car 51. That'll be easy to remember as we head for the Road to Le Mans events. So GT3 winners. A little earlier caught up with Steph Wentworth. Let's hear that.
And now I'm joined by the GT3 winners of the number 51 AF course. Matthew, I'll start with you as you started the car off. You've got so much pace, just missed out on pole, but again, you proved it in the race that that's where it matters.
Yeah, absolutely. The Lambo was quick, very quick. Keep the car clean, give it to Ale in one piece. He did an excellent job again, and the team AF course has been incredible. Car was great today.
And Alessandro, you got the car and it looked like a very well-controlled stint from the outside. Is that how it felt inside in the cockpit for you?
Well, before getting in the car, I was expecting a hard fight with the Iron Dames because they show really a lot of pace in qualifying and also with Matt. So, but then, you know, I know they had the 10 seconds penalty, and that, of course, gave me a nice cushion. But otherwise, I think it was going to be a tough race. There are some cars out there that they show some pace. Of course, I had to stay just out of troubles, out of the LMP3 traffic. That year was a little bit more challenging than Barcelona, but nice clean race and just execution. I think that's the key, you know, to get to the victory lane.
Well, 2 wins out of 2 so far. We'll see you at Road to Le Mans. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the big one. Thumbs up to the camera, and in the slowly setting sun in the closing stages of the race, that number 151 Ferrari looking resplendent in its 2024 livery, and the car looking very similar to how it did at the start of the race. That's often key to getting a good result. Sadly, the same can't be said for 1 or 2 of the other runners, picking up various bits of circuit scenery. There have been so many rotations, particularly in the LMP3 category. We're massively looking forward to the 2 Road to Le Mans races, races 3 and 4 of this championship. From Graham Goodwin, Steph Wentworth and me, Johnny Palmer, bye-bye for now.